Oh, you got it right. Yeah. Okay. She called Loriana. She's gonna call yours too. We're submitting this. Dismissing. Yes.
Let's talk about our VR.
She called you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, what is happening with your face?
Okay, we're filling out the same thing. She's the code.
Thank you.
Oh, good to see you, man.
All right, good to see you too.
Good morning.
All right, where's your phone?
She's right here.
Hello.
Good luck on the truck.
All right, thank you so much.
Leave a headache. The white one to Caroline.
There's some several herds, what I understand is online.
First, I need to know where the FBR is. Raven Martinez, and Eduardo Jimenez.
Brenda, are you ready?
Oh, yes.
All right, the court is going to call 2021 CR 7575, State of Texas versus Jose Parada. Can I have parties approach, please? All right. And step back. That's okay. Yes, you missed the line, right? All right, can I have parties announced for the record for the state,
Marcus Sanders and Ryan Grumman.
for the defense?
Guillermo Lara and Matthew Allen, Your Honor.
All right, and Mr. Parada is sitting at the table. I'm not going to have him move because I see that the interpreter has set up the microphones for him. Could I have the interpreter raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm you will faithfully translate from English into Spanish and from Spanish into English, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand if you could state your name for the record. All right, thank you. Counsel, is Mr. Parada a U.S. citizen? And I ask that not because he speaks Spanish, but just so that the record is clear that he's been given information if he's not a U.S. citizen.
Understood, Your Honor. Yes, he is a U.S. citizen.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Are both parties ready for jury trial? State,
State's ready.
defense?
We're ready, Your Honor.
All right, and the court sees that for election of punishment, if Mr. Parada were found guilty, counsel is going to the jury for punishment. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And the court is in receipt of the application for community supervision as well. The court is also in receipt of the acknowledgement of discovery. Defense, have you received all the discovery and did you review that with your client?
We have.
All right, the court will find that the state is in compliance with discovery. As soon as the other jurors appear, we will bring the jurors in and start with jury selection. We can go off the record.
Yep.
Yes,
Sorry, what's the date on that discovery acknowledgement?
it's July 21st, 2022.
Okay, I'll do a new one just because there was stuff that I looked at with that. So I'll do it.
All right. All right, we'll go on the record then once you've given me the new discovery acknowledgement.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Then you were going to say something else.
Yes, off the record. How much time are you all requesting for jury selection? State, defense?
45 minutes an hour, Judge.
All right. So defense, I know you have not been, or maybe you have, but I'm unsure if you've been in the 187th for jury selection or not. All right. So the way I do jury selection is in here is the state will have an hour. They can do it however they choose. They can use it all as specific or all as general. And then the defense will have an hour and you can use it all as specific or all as general. To give Brenda a break. Brenda, would you like for the it to be broken down in 30 minutes? Would that help?
And a straight hour is fine. Just like a short break in between them.
All right. So once the state finishes with their voir dire, then we're going to take a break and then we'll start with your voir dire. Okay. And I don't do strikes in front of the jurors because that may be a hindrance either to the state or the defense. But also sometimes people are like, oh, that's what I need to say. So I leave strikes at the end. So just make sure that if you are going to end up striking someone for cause, that you've established that fact during your voir dire, because I don't like to have each side have an hour and then we're bringing back 40 jurors for us to continue to talk to. Okay. All right. Thank you. And is all the equipment working, everyone? Do we know for sure? And defense, are you going to need to use any of the tech equipment?
Judge, we've uploaded our PowerPoint to the
Okay.
state, so we're just gonna use theirs and their equipment and just use it without.
All right, thank you.
Kind enough to share with us.
Okay. Well, it's nice to see everybody getting along.
That's Marcus that leads it.
It's like, what happened? It's disappeared. Mhm.
I'll test out the other stuff once.
Okay. Well, Eduardo, tell Eduardo that we're going to start with this jury selection. He was supposed to be here at 9 a.m. I told everybody to be at 9 a.m. So he's coming back tomorrow.
It's all about to be back tomorrow.
No, I want him here, and I'm going to tell him to be back tomorrow because the jury's out in the hallway. And when we say 9 a.m., we mean 9 a.m. And the same goes for Raymond Martinez and Raphael Leal. So they still need to be here. And we're going to have them come back tomorrow. Oh, you can mute us. Hello.
Coach, just-
Yes.
So, we have, there you go.
Mhm.
And, I was at the board. I was in another, sorry, I'm a little out of breath, it's kind of on the steps. on my feet. I'm in another call with another client, just trying to do a pre-trial diversion, contract with her.
Yeah, but see, trial starts here at 9 a.m.
I just barely got it. Sorry.
Well, no, I mean, trial starts at 9. You should have been here at 9 a.m. You and your client are going to be back tomorrow at 9 a.m.
At 9
Mhm.
a.m.
You're welcome. No, like. So Vegas coming back tomorrow at 9 a.m. The chair she had was so comfortable.
Whenever Huff and Puff wants to do it. What do you feel like doing with your Huff and Puff? Knock yourself out. Oh, it's like you really just have to go through a cake. In the house. You have your animals do a magic trick outside. Seen that.
Mhm. So, how many jurors are we missing?
Six, Judge.
Okay,
I've been checking periodically and. still not answering.
all right, which six are we missing?
We're missing number 3.
Mhm.
Yolanda Rivera, Melissa Herrera.
What?
That's number 33.
Mhm,
Robert Dorner, number 34.
mhm,
Juanita Ortiz, which is number 46.
mhm.
Kenneth Luna, number 55. And Joel Martinez, 57.
All right, and who are the persons who had the illness?
The only one that will be number 65.
Mhm.
Lori Joseph, and that's the gentleman that came up here.
Mhm.
The other person did come in.
Oh, he's 65 is here.
Oh, 65 is present?
No, he didn't come in.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right, everyone, excuse me, state in defense, and Brenna, we're on the record.
Okay.
The following jurors are not present. Number 65 is not present due to an illness. Is there any objection to excusing number 65? State? Defense?
No, Bexar.
Numbers 3, 33, 34, 46, 55, and 57 are not present. It's my understanding that there was a long line downstairs. But is there any objection to proceeding without those jurors being present? And of course, if those jurors do make an appearance, I will give both sides ample time to question them. Is there any objection to proceeding without those jurors being present? State?
Judge, we would object. I guess we would ask for a little more time when we get here.
We're supposed to start at 9. It is now 9:42.
Yes, sir. I'm just asking for like 9:50.
Defense, any objection?
Judge, I wouldn't have any objection. If we have sufficient time to just ask them the basic questions, I wouldn't have an objection.
All right. So we're going to proceed. And could you let Deputy Laura know that we can bring the jurors in? And for the people who are in the audience, I'm going to need you to move to a seat that does not have a number associated with it.
I'm not sure if we're gonna have a seat to put him in, Your Honor.
I think all of them do. So are you all here for a specific case?
Natasha Deacon. Raphael is my lawyer.
All right. If you wish, you can wait in the hallway. I tell you what, Raphael is not here. We're going to recall you for tomorrow at 9 a.m. If you wish to wait in the hallway for him, you can do that. Or if you wish to wait in the courtroom, but we just need the extra seating for the jurors. Ms. Ferguson, can you give her a reset for tomorrow, please? And you, sir, in the back row?
You told me to come today, I was here yesterday.
It's
right.
Mr. Andrade.
All right, we're going to give you a reset too for tomorrow. And if you would like to call your attorney, you can call your attorney. All right, and thank you all for being on time. All right, so Ms. Ferguson is going to give you a reset form.
Yes. Okay. Out of here.
Yes, he does, as long as he's on the ignition and relock, that's fine. Where is the? I'm just looking for the docket sheet and I'll write it on there.
I'll get you in this.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh. Caroline, will you let her know this stayed with me for some reason? Thanks.
Just to confirm, all on the same page, I have a list of the names you said aren't here, or the numbers of the people who you said aren't here.
Yes,
Just make
it's-
sure we're all on the same page.
It's number 3, 33, 34, 46, 55, 57, and 65.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Deputy, could you let Deputy Laura know that we're ready for the jurors? All right, and State, did you provide the defense with the updated discovery?
Ready, Ron?
Yes, we're ready. All right, everyone, please rise.
All rise for the jury. Yes. 6, 7, 8, all the way down.
And sir, you need to remove your hat. Thank you. All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, good morning, everyone. Okay, it's the start of a new day. There are new beginnings. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, see, be happy. All right, welcome to the 187th District Court. I'm Judge Stephanie Boyd. You're in the 187th District Court. It's on the 4th floor. All right, so which floor are we on?
4.
All right, and what's the court number?
87.
And who's the judge?
71.
All right, and you're probably saying, we know this. We've been standing out in the hallway. Why would she ask such a question? And the reason why I do that is because in order for us to begin, you all need to be here and you need to stay together. We've had jury selections before where we've been waiting on someone and they've come to the courtroom and we're just waiting. Everybody's tapping their fingers like, where's this person? And they're down the hallway on another jury panel trying to be on that jury because they forgot they were in which court?
27.
Which floor?
4.
Who's the judge?
4.
All right. And the reason why I ask that is because if you forget you're on the 4th floor, which I know nobody here will, if you forget it's the 187th, which I know no one will, if you just remember my last name, I'm the only Boyd in the entire Judge Boyd in the entire courthouse. All right. So you all are here for jury selection. One of the most important people here today is the court reporter. Brenda, could you raise your hand? All right, thank you. I can't see over the screen.
I did.
So Brenda takes down everything that everyone says. If she doesn't take it down, then it did not happen. So I need everyone to make sure you speak up so she can hear. And I need everybody to talk one person at a time. Now, mind you, I've seen Brenda take down 3 people talking at once, 4 people talking at once. But guess what? We're going to make her job very easy today. So we're only going to talk one person at a time. Now, here's the other thing that every time we have a jury panel, they don't remember this part. If you are sitting over here, which is called the jury box, you don't have to stand when you talk because Brenda will be able to hear you. If you're sitting on this first row, you don't have to stand when you talk because Brenda will hear you. Everybody else, if you're able to, when you speak, I'm going to need you to stand so that Brenda can hear. And if anyone forgets that, you are all welcome to say, stand, so that Brenda will be able to hear. I want to let the parties in this case introduce themselves to you. Representing the state.
Good morning, my name is Ryan Bremer.
And representing the defense.
Morning, everybody. My name is Guillermo Lara.
Matthew Allen.
And your client.
And this is Mr. Jose Parada.
All right. Does anyone know or recognize any of those parties? All right. So the other thing you have in your possession right now is you have some cards. Those cards are very expensive. If you can raise those cards, please raise them. Right. See, some people were sitting on the expensive cards. All right. Thank you. All right. You can lower them. So the reason why you have those cards, if there's anything that you want to answer, just raise your card and the state or the defense, whoever's questioning you, will recognize your number. Okay. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about the United States. A lot of people think, and it's wrong, people think that the official language of the United States is English. How many people here think that's the official language of the United States? Right. And I'm sorry, what's your number, sir?
21.
Number 21. All right. The United States does not have an official language because it's a melting pot. When I went to law school, of course, I had gotten too old, but my classmates were trying to teach me their different languages, right? One of my best friends was Navajo. She was trying to teach me Navajo. The only thing that I learned from everybody who went to law school was hurry up. I know how to say hurry up in every language. Sometimes it can be rude, but if you do it with a smile, it's okay. One of my friends her family came from Lebanon. Again, all I know how to do is say hurry up in that language. I ended up taking French because I'm originally from Louisiana. I had no idea I was going to end up in Texas. I should have taken Spanish like my friends, but I did not. So there are a lot of people who speak different languages, and I think it's great to hear. I wish I spoke more than one language. One of my friends in law school actually spoke 7 languages, and I'm like, you're going to be in high demand when you graduate. And guess what? He's in high demand. They sent him to Spain. They sent him to France. They sent him to Italy. They sent him to the Middle East, and he can speak all these languages. And I just think it's just beautiful to hear. And you probably ask me, why is the judge talking to us about that? The reason why I'm talking to you about that is because we have an interpreter here today for Mr. PARADA. So sometimes people do speak the English language, but sometimes they feel more comfortable when it's a serious matter. They feel more comfortable in their native language, right? So for example, if I were to go to France, which I try to go every year, and there was something serious happen, I can speak French, but I would definitely feel more comfortable in English. So I want to make sure that both the state and the defense have a fair trial. And I want to make sure that Mr. PARADA understands that everything that's going on. So is there anyone here who's going to hold it against Mr. PARADA because he's using an interpreter? All right, I'll take that as a no, since no one is raising their cards. So I want to talk to you about the charge today. The charge today is manslaughter. That's what Mr. PARADA is being charged with. Now, I know some of you are probably saying, oh, I wish I was in civil court. Give me a car accident. Let me decide some insurance. But the thing about it is, we cannot have jury trials if we don't have jurors. So people always say that the United States is the best legal system. We have the best jury trials. Well, in order to have the best jury trials, we need jurors. That's the key. Now, the state and defense are going to be speaking to you. I want you to remember that when they're speaking to you, they're going to be speaking to you in hypotheticals. They're not going to be speaking to you about the facts of this case. The only way you will hear the facts of this case is if you're placed on the jury. So anytime someone speaks to you, it's hypotheticals. Does everyone understand? So it is not about Mr. PARADA. Now, this is where you can raise your cards. How many people here have had some type of traffic ticket? All right, so we have a lot of bad drivers out here. I've had one too. There's only one person. Let me do this. Who has not had a traffic ticket? All right, everyone, look around. Talk to them about their driving habits because they've been doing a great job. All right, the reason why I say that to you is this. Mr. PARADA is here by way of an indictment. So an indictment is in no way of evidence of guilt. You can't consider it as any type of evidence at all. An indictment is just a way whereby somebody is brought to court. So all of you who had traffic tickets before, let's assume you didn't follow the yield sign, which in San Antonio, that happens a lot. People don't know what the yield sign means. Or they're saying that you ran through a stop sign or ran a red light. When that officer gives you a ticket, and when I was growing up, it was a paper ticket. They had the little notebook. Now I think it's all computerized. When they give you that ticket and you accept that ticket, you're not agreeing or admitting that you ran the yield sign or ran a stop sign or went over the speed limit. You're just saying, okay, you're giving this ticket. This is what you're saying I did. And on that ticket, they're telling you what they're accusing you of. They're telling you where you need to go to answer for those charges and what date. So it doesn't mean that you actually ran the red light. You're not admitting it. It's not an evidence of guilt. Once you get that ticket, then you make the decision if you want a jury trial or not. So an indictment is the same thing. An indictment is to tell you what you're charged with, where you need to be. Does everyone understand? Is there anyone here who's going to hold it against Mr. PARADA because there's an indictment? All right. Now, the other thing, how many of you all have heard of the term right to remain silent? Is there anyone who hasn't heard that? Where are my Beretta people, my Mannix people? Oh my gosh. How young are the people out there? People should remember Beretta, Mannix, and Barnaby Jones, the practice. All right, so they always talk about the right to remain silent. What that means is no one has to give testimony against themselves. And there's many reasons why people may not want to testify. Maybe they're shy. Maybe they don't feel comfortable. Maybe they speak another language. There are a whole host of reasons. But if someone decides not to testify and they're accused, you cannot consider it or hold it against them whatsoever. Does everyone understand? Is there anyone who's not able to do that? All right, 4, 12, 13, and 37. Okay, and 73 and 66. So for all of those people who are raising their hand and saying that they would hold it against somebody, I'm assuming if you were on trial and you decided not to testify, you would be okay with people holding it against you. That's what I'm assuming from all the people who raised their hands. All right, the next thing is that everyone is presumed to be innocent. So just because somebody is charged, that doesn't mean that they are guilty. Everyone's presumed innocent. Does everyone understand? So a person is presumed to be innocent, and the state must prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense does not have to prove anything. Does everyone understand? So if the state doesn't prove their case, then that means someone is found not guilty. Does everyone understand? All right. Now, the burden of proof, I mentioned to you, it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. When I was in law school and I graduated and I had my first criminal trial, there was a definition for proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And you just thought you were the bee's knees if you knew that definition backwards and forwards. I knew that definition backwards and forward. My first jury trial, I used that definition. After my first jury trial, guess what happened? There is no longer a definition for proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So usually how people describe it is by telling you what it is not. So on the civil side, they have different burdens of proof. They have a preponderance of the evidence, which is sort of like more likely than not. The highest burden on the civil side is what's called clear and convincing evidence. And clear and convincing evidence is what is used to terminate or take away someone's right to raise their child. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is higher than clear and convincing evidence. Does everyone understand? And the state must prove each and every element of their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Does everyone understand? Okay. Now, there are two phases to a jury trial. The first phase, you'd make the decision of whether someone is guilty or not guilty. A lot of people think that the first phase is really, I'm making the decision whether someone is innocent or not innocent, but that's not true. The first phase, you are actually determining whether someone is guilty or not guilty, whether the state proved their case or did not prove their case. Does everyone understand? Phase two is if you were to find someone guilty, the next phase is what's called the punishment phase. And in the punishment phase, it means exactly what it says. You make a determination on what someone's punishment should be. In this case, the range of punishment for manslaughter is anywhere from 2 to 20 years in prison, and also a possibility of probation. Does everyone understand? Now, when people talk to you about the range of punishment, it's in a hypothetical, right? So sometimes people will say, well, will you give this? Will you give somebody 5 years? Will you give them 10 years? When in actuality, you don't know what you would give someone if you were to find them guilty of manslaughter because you don't know any facts. Does everyone understand? So when I speak to you about range of punishment, it means that you have to consider it not that you give it. So, for example, if you were to find someone guilty of robbery, robbery is also a second-degree felony, and the range of punishment is 2 to 20 years. You need to realize that the range of punishment is 2 to 20 years, and I will consider that. I will look at the evidence and decide, should this person get 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, all the way up to 20. And in a manslaughter case, you would ask yourself, okay, let me apply the facts or whatever information I want to apply and make a decision whether someone should get 2, 3, 4, 5, 15, 20 years or probation. But you must be able to consider it. Not that you give it, not that you give somebody 2 years, not that you give somebody 20 years, not that you give them probation, but you must be able to consider the full range of punishment. Is there anyone here who would not be able to consider the full range of punishment? All right, that's 4, 15, 51, 61, and 69. All right, in this case, Mr. PARADA has decided that if he is found guilty, he would go to the jury for punishment. Our law says that anyone who is in a criminal trial must make an election or a selection that if they were found guilty, would they go to the jury for punishment or would they come to the court for punishment? And that must be decided before jury selection. Does everyone understand? Yes. And so Mr. PARADA had to make that decision. Now, the fact that Mr. PARADA is saying that if he were found guilty, he would go to the jury for punishment is not him saying that he is guilty. It's just the law says he must make a selection. Does everyone understand? Is there anyone here who's going to hold it against Mr. PARADA because he's made the decision to go to the jury for punishment if he were found guilty? Yes, I see. All right. Next, I'm going to talk to you about the one witness rule. Now, I'm talking to you about this rule, and I have rarely seen a case where it's just one witness. Maybe 2 times in my life, I've seen a case where the state only has one witness to prove a case. But this is the one witness rule, and I'm going to give you the hypothetical. Do not, I repeat, do not add anything to my hypothetical. This is my hypothetical. Don't add, oh, I wonder if it was dark out. I wonder if that person had been drinking. I wonder if they really saw what they said they saw. So this is the hypothetical. A witness comes in, they're sworn in to tell the truth. They come in to testify about what they saw. It can be Mother Teresa. It can be the Queen of England. It could be someone's mother. They're coming in to testify. And maybe they're testifying that they were robbed, or maybe they're testifying that someone broke into their home. And they're saying, this is what I saw. And it's person John Doe. They did it. I know John Doe. That's the person. And that's the person I saw do it. Does everyone understand the hypothetical? Now, there's no question about their credibility. You believe everything that they're saying. You believe it's true. You have no question about their vision. You know what they're saying is true. This is the one witness rule. Knowing that, will you be able to still be able to find a person guilty? Because that would mean that the state has proven its entire case through that one witness. Does everyone understand the hypothetical? Is there anyone here who does not understand my hypothetical? So is there anyone here who will still require more evidence? Okay, lower your cards. Let me explain my hypothetical again, because I don't think people understood the hypothetical. All right, one person is testifying. They're sworn in to tell the truth. Does everyone get that? There's no doubt in your mind that they are telling the truth. You believe them. Does everyone understand? That person testifies and they prove the state's case beyond a reasonable doubt. Does everyone understand? Okay. It's similar to if you have a person, let's say they're walking down a dark alley and they get robbed. and they know the person who robbed them. And they're going to come testify to you and say, I know John Doe. John Doe robbed me. This is the person. So if that's the state's only witness, are you thinking the state should not try that case because they only have that one witness? Is there anyone who thinks that case should not be tried? So this is what the one witness rule that I'm explaining to you about the hypothetical. There's one witness. You believe them. There's no question in your mind. You don't have any doubt. They're telling the truth. So is there any, after I've given you that hypothetical, is there anyone here? Now you may want more information like, I would love to have a video. I would love to have this. But the question is, they've proven the state's case beyond a reasonable doubt to every element. Will you be able to make a decision on guilt or not guilty based upon that one witness? Is there anyone here who could not do that? All right, number 15. Oh, 61 and 73 and 25. All right, next, I want to talk to you all about time constraints. Is there anyone here who has a time constraint where they can't sit? Maybe you have plane tickets, they're non-refundable. You can't transfer them to my name. Is there anyone here who has any type of time constraints? All right. Number one, what is your time constraint?
I have a mandatory meeting I need to attend to within the next couple of weeks.
What date?
I believe it's the 27th.
Okay, it's a mandatory meeting and you believe it's on the 27th?
I just forgot my schedule. It's within the next couple of weeks. I can't remember my manager sent me an email and she said that may not be the date, but it'll in a couple of weeks.
All right, thank you. And who else over here? Number 4, what is your time constraint?
I have a global entry interview on the 20th. And I'm traveling to Scandinavia in the next week or so.
What are you doing in Scandinavia?
Visiting.
Who are you visiting?
I'm visiting Scandinavia.
Oh, so you're just going to see the beautiful things that Scandinavia offers?
I don't know yet.
Okay. All right, and when is that?
That's going to be week after next.
All right, anyone else in the box? All right, over here. Yes.
When you talk about time constraint, how long are we talking? Like, more than 3 weeks?
No. Okay, thank you. All right, number 23.
I'll be out of town Friday, vacation
Friday when?
this Friday,
Okay. Where are you going?
Dallas.
Oh, what are you doing in Dallas?
My mom's coming out from California. We're taking her out there.
All right, does your mom want to see you?
Thanks.
Okay. And nobody told number 23 to stand up. See? He's ruined it for everybody. That's okay, Juror 23. I appreciate that. It's always nice to see mom. Number 8.
I have to take my wife to an eye doctor appointment. She actually is visually impaired.
All right, and when is this?
Friday.
Okay. Number 26.
I'm the site leader at my campus where I work. There's no one else to cover like my position. It's Monday through Fridays.
All right, thank you. Number 27.
I'm gonna be out of the state from the 23rd through the 3rd.
I'm sorry, 23rd through what?
Through the 3rd of next month.
All right, and what are you doing? Where is it going to be?
I'm going on vacation to Nevada to see a friend.
All right. Thank you. 28.
I have 2 medical appointments on the 23rd that I have to reschedule, and my husband and I got COVID in June.
Okay.
So they're
All right, thank you.
take a while to get in.
All right, thank you so much. 31.
Yes, ma'am. I got a doctor's appointment next Tuesday.
All right, thank you. 20,
I have a doctor's appointment on the 29th. Plus, my mother has 2 doctor's appointments as well. My mother's 94.
oh,
and
congratulations.
Very lucky.
Yeah.
But she has a lot of limitations. I'm the only one of her children that live here in San Antonio, so I have to take her to all her doctor's appointments. Sometimes they crop up. I got a text this morning from my husband saying that my mother called. She lives in an assisted living.
Okay.
He's gonna try to handle it this morning, but I have to take her to all her doctor's appointments.
Okay, and when is her next appointment?
Her next appointment, I think, is the 30th.
Okay. You know, there's always one in the family who's in, everybody calls on, right?
Yeah, well, I'm the only one here, unfortunately.
Okay, and I'm detecting an accent. Are you originally from Texas?
No.
Where would it be?
I'm originally from Rhode Island.
Okay, I love that accent. Thank you. All right, mine comes out sometimes. Number 32.
My wife and I are going to Dallas on the 21st through the 23rd for a concert.
What concert?
It's a band called the Mars Volta.
Okay, thank you. Number 37.
I have a cruise booked a week from this Saturday,
Where are you going?
Key West in the Bahamas.
Oh, look, everybody's like, oh, nice. Why didn't somebody say, oh, nice, when people were saying Dallas and Nevada? All right. And I'm sorry, what date is that?
A week from this Saturday.
Okay. All right, you better learn what it is. They'll leave you.
I know.
My understanding, cruises don't wait for anybody. All right, thank you. Number 44.
Hi, good morning. My wife is out of town tomorrow and Friday, so I will be watching my kids.
And what are their ages?
8, 4, 2, but the 8-year-old will be in school.
Are you able to handle a 4 and 2-year-old?
We're gonna find out.
Okay. All right, thank you. Number 49.
We're visiting my elderly grandfather in North Carolina, the 28th through the 2nd. We haven't seen him in a few years and he's not doing great.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you're bringing gifts or something.
Yeah.
All right. And are you going to be cooking for them?
My mom probably will, yeah.
Look, see, that's what I mean about there's one person, he's putting the cooking on his mom. Okay.
I'm no cook, Judge.
All right. Number 50.
On Friday of this week, Friday morning, I have an appointment for a healthcare evaluation for my job that I have to have yearly. And my last evaluation expires next Thursday, the 22nd.
All right. So it's Friday, what date?
This coming Friday, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. All right. Number 71.
On September 23rd, I have vacation plans to travel to Colorado.
Colorado. All right. What are you going to be doing in Colorado?
Going to the Colorado State football game. My goddaughter plays in the marching band.
Oh, wow. That's going to be awesome. I thought I didn't hear any ooh, ahs like the cruise, but okay. Number 73.
Friday, we'll be in beautiful San Angelo, Texas.
You sold it. What are you doing in San Angelo?
There, I just received 43 projects and they're all Taco Bell. And I'm the only project manager in this area. So,
Oh, for Taco Bell.
Taco Bell.
All right. Thank you. Number 74.
I started a job on Thursday. It's Tuesday, sorry.
Next Tuesday. What are you going to be doing?
I work for Verizon Wireless. Training with them.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And nobody rush him about your service. Number 70.
Hi, Judge. I'm a school teacher and we're having a very hard time finding substitutes for our classes.
Mhm.
So I know that that's kind of putting a strain on my team at work.
Okay. All right. I teach at UTSA. What are you teaching?
Monroe May Elementary.
Okay. All right. And what do you teach them? Is it still like general subjects?
Yes, everything.
All right. Tell them to bring back language arts and cursive writing.
Yes.
First of it.
All right, language arts and civics, that has gone by the wayside. Thank you for your service. All right, number 12.
I'm gonna be out of town for 29th.
And where are you going?
I am going to New York to visit my son who just dropped out in college.
So really you're going to check up on them. All right. And I still didn't hear the awe for New York. All right. So everyone has had a chance to, sorry, number 2.
Yes, I am on the job training till the end of this month. So.
What do you do?
I work for Teachers Retirement System of Texas.
Oh, wow. You need to meet the 2nd grade teacher we have over here.
I was an educator before, so.
Okay, awesome. All right, number 6.
I do have a concert on the 27th in Austin. It'll be amazing. And then my sister's getting married October 1st here in San Antonio, but I do be there.
All right. What is your role in your sister's wedding?
I'm later on.
All right. And do you really want to do that? There are a lot of responsibilities. Okay. So concert in Austin, when is that? And who are you going to see? I know, I've heard of that. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Number 19.
Yes, I also teach, and yeah, our sub list is, we're also very strained, like very, very small.
Okay. So where do you teach?
I teach at a church, University Methodist Church. I teach preschool 3-year-olds.
Oh, wow.
And they're also struggling too.
All right. But when they come from you, they're going to know their ABCs and the quadratic equation. They're going to know everything. All right. Anyone at number 24?
Your Honor, I have a medical appointment a week from today. It's late in the afternoon, so I'm not entirely certain. Conflict, but
All right. Thank you for letting me know. And anyone else? All right. So now that you all have had a chance to speak and probably got a chance to know your fellow jurors as they stood in the hallway, do any of you know each other outside of just meeting today? All right, that is so strange. Usually we have a teacher and their student is on the panel. Once we had a wife and ex-wife. So, I mean, they got along beautifully. Both of them were happy with their status. All right, so I'm going to tell you 2 true stories. Here's the first one. Your country doesn't ask a lot of you. Really, when you think about it, you don't have to vote. Although everybody should, but you don't have to. You don't get arrested if you don't vote. Somebody doesn't come knocking on your door saying, hey, why didn't you vote? The only thing they really ask of you is to do jury duty. And somebody, when I said this before, somebody's like, oh, and pay taxes. But I'm like, yeah, okay, and pay taxes. But they ask you to give your service through jury duty. I had an uncle who since passed. He grew up in Grand Cane, Louisiana, small little place in Louisiana, probably right now, maybe population 800, something like that. I think in its heyday, it was probably maybe 1,200 people. And he was super intelligent. And so the teachers would move him up a grade. It's not like here, it's like, hey, he's intelligent. He knows everything. He's mastered everything. This subject, we're just going to move him up. So they kept moving him up in grades. So when he graduated, the Vietnam War was starting and they were drafting all of the boys in Vietnam. And so he's like, I'm not going to be picking cotton. I'm not doing this sharecropping thing. I'm just going to go into the military. So my grandmother had to actually sign for him to go to the military because he was underage. And so he went. And the reason why I bring that story up to you is he hadn't been called up yet, but he volunteered to go before he was called up. So the country doesn't even have a draft anymore. Unless they change the law, you don't even have to go fight in a war unless you want to fight in a war. And people always say, we love our military. Look at what our military does. And the only thing the country is asking for you to show your love for country is jury duty. So I want you all to keep that in mind. The other true story I'm going to tell you is about my friend. my friend decided to practice civil law. I always wanted to do criminal law. It was always my passion. And she and I lost touch a little bit because on the criminal side, you're usually always in trial and you're in court every day. On the civil side, normally you're in the office every day, filing briefs or doing research. And so one day she told me that she had jury duty and she's like, let's do lunch. I'm like, this would be great. So we ended up having lunch and it was like, we've been talking to each other. No time had elapsed. And so I asked, how's jury doing going? And she said, jury duty is going fabulous. And I'm like, okay, jury duty is great, but I've never had anyone describe it as fabulous. I'm like, why do you say it's so fabulous? And she's like, I'm not going to get selected. I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to get selected? So she's like, it's like in law school. I'm on the back row. I'm keeping my head down. And so I started laughing uncontrollably. And she said, what's so funny? Why are you laughing? I'm like, you're so going to be on that jury. So at the end of the day, at 5 o'clock, I see her. I said, hey, you're here. I'm here. Let's go have dinner. And so we go have dinner. I'm like, so what happened? She's like, I'm on the jury. So I tell you that story because if you don't speak up, nobody knows you. And what ends up happening usually is you're on the jury. And I know here, though, that everybody is here and everybody wants to serve because they know that in order for us to have jury trials, we need jurors. Okay. So if ever you need a break at any time, just let me know. And this court, when you need a break, just do this symbol. I'll either see it, the deputies will see it, or either the defense attorneys or state will let me know. But when we take a break, what ends up happening is everyone has to leave the room together. Does everyone understand? So before I turn it over to the state, I want everyone to look to your left and look to your right. That's your jury buddy. You need to make sure that they don't get lost and they know they're on the 4th floor, 187th with Judge Boyd. So if you come back here and your jury buddy is not here, we're going to look at you and say, you failed your buddy. All right. With that being said, I am going to turn it over to the state. You're welcome.
Good morning, everybody. So this part of the process of our Dyer, our jury selection, is our opportunity to talk to everyone, to get to know a little bit about you. We'll talk about some of the law. We won't go into the facts like the judge said. Really the purpose, and really it's our only opportunity to really talk to you and get feedback from you, and because it's our opportunity to see if this is the right case for you. What we're trying to find out is, can you be fair and unbiased in this particular case? So just keep that in mind. We're not trying to pry into your business. If I ever ask a question, same with defense, that's too personal, you can let us know. And we can talk about it privately, but really the whole point is just to see if this is the case for you, because we want to make sure that it's a fair trial for both sides. And that's why would someone be unable to be fair and unbiased? And this is why we introduce ourselves, because if you know someone, you probably may not be able to be fair and unbiased, right? You have some sort of feelings towards them, you may really like them, you may hate them, but you have some sort of background information to go on, and so that would affect your ability to be fair and unbiased. Would you agree with me? So, as the judge said, this is a manslaughter case, but I want to use the possession of marijuana case as an example. I'm going to show y'all some pictures. I want y'all to tell me if y'all recognize any of these people. You're number 21. Deacon Chong, yeah. What about that guy? You're number 4. Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson. That guy? Snoop Dogg. 13 Snoop Dogs, and those guys. 45. Exactly, yeah. So I tried to get everybody's generation, but would everyone agree with me that all of these guys like smoking weed, right? Do y'all think that they would have an issue if all of a sudden weed was made illegal everywhere again? Yeah. So do y'all think it would be hard for them to be fair and unbiased in the case where someone's being tried for possession of weed? Right. And so just keep that in mind, keep these individuals in mind when we're talking to you, and when we're talking about different subjects, see, okay, that sort of hit a note with me, and I don't think I could be fair and biased in this case. If you're chosen on the jury, you're going to be asked to take an oath to render a verdict based on the facts and the law that's presented to you, as well as the evidence. So this offense, manslaughter, I'm going to give you what the legal definition is. A person commits an offense if he recklessly causes the death of another. Who here has heard of the word murder? And anyone, listen, juror number 8. Do you know what the difference is between murder and manslaughter?
Isn't murder, planned?
It can be, yeah. Definitely can be planned. Anyone else have anything else to add? Juror number, let's see, 39.
Intent?
Great, exactly. That's the difference between murder and manslaughter. It's either intentionally or knowingly. Manslaughter is just recklessly. And we're gonna talk about what that difference is. We'll go into a little bit more detail. But recklessly is the main difference. There's legal definition for intentionally, knowingly, and recklessly. This is it. Gonna just sort of break it down, make it a little bit easier to understand. Intentionally, it is your objective to engage in the conduct that causes the result. Does that make sense to everyone? So let's say Ryan here, I was like, Ryan, proud of being your partner, I don't like you. I look at him, I punch him in the face. Was that intentional? Yes. Yeah. How do you know it was intentional? Juror number 20.
You just walk up to him and punch him in the face.
Yeah, I punch him. Yeah. Anyone else? How do you know it was intentional? Juror number 60.
You just said you don't like them.
Exactly. I announced it, right? I said, Ryan, I don't like you. I looked at him, I saw where he was, and I punched him. Knowingly, you're aware of your conduct or understand the consequences, or that the consequences of your actions are likely to cause the result. So let's say instead of saying, Ryan, I don't like you, I just stop right here, I look at him, and I do like that. Was that intentionally? Probably, right? You don't have as much as that first example, but was it knowingly? Everyone would agree that I knew that I was gonna punch him, right? So recklessly, there's a conscious disregard of harm that may be caused by your action. So instead of picking on Ryan, let's say I see all of y'all crammed in together, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna pick this up, and I just throw it out there. And I hit one of you. You're number, you said 40? 40. Was that reckless of me?
Yes.
Yeah. Did I necessarily intend to hit you specifically?
No.
But did I know that there was a good chance of it?
Yes.
Yeah. Would everyone agree with me that if I picked up my notepad and just threw it out amongst y'all, that was reckless of me, right? And so that's the difference. Does everyone get that? Sort of a lesser burden. Sure, everyone knows what a firearm is, but if you're chosen on the jury, the court will give you the law, and there's a legal definition for a firearm. This is a legal definition. Would everyone agree with me that that's a firearm?
Yes.
What about that?
Yes.
That?
Yes.
And that?
Yes.
Does anyone here have a CHL or a license to carry? Okay, juror number 43. Did you have to take a course to get it?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury, and
Yes.
yeah, can you tell the jury what was one of the first rules, I guess, that you learned?
Keep your gun pointed in a safe direction and don't point it at something you're not willing to destroy.
Okay, did everyone hear that? Anything else?
Always treat it as if it was loaded.
Always treat it as if it's loaded. Juror number 42.
One that always stuck in my head is, remember, the bullet has to go somewhere. So when you shoot, like if you're just gonna shoot like random, it's gonna hit something, it's gonna hit somebody, so make sure you're aiming at what you're gonna try to shoot at.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything else to add? Yeah, so that's pretty much everything that I had on here. Always keep your firearm pointed in a safe direction. Never point it at anyone that you or anything that you do not intend to kill or shoot. Everyone agree with me that this is important, that you keep your finger off the trigger unless you're ready to shoot. Does anyone have any issue with that part? Does anyone think that that's not a good common rule to have? Treat all guns as if they're loaded. Juror number 43 said, and what juror 42 said, be be sure of your target and what's beyond it, because you're responsible for that bullet and everything that you're. Does everyone agree with me that those are sort of good philosophies to know and live by if you have a CHO? Or anyone who operates in kind of that. So when a criminal offense occurs, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to handle it ourselves or call the proper authorities? So I want you to raise your card. It's not a trick question. I just really want to know how you feel about this. The criminal offense occurs on the spot. What's your gut reaction? Is it, I'm going to handle this myself, or I'm going to call the authorities? If you believe that you're the type of person you're just going to handle it yourself, I want you to raise your card. If you fall into that first category, number 1. Juror number 23, 37, 45, 49, 22. And you can put your card down after I call your number. 51, 54, 57, 63. So does everyone else fall into that second, 73? Does everyone else fall into that second category? Is there anyone who's like, I don't really know what I would do? And so all of you who don't know what you do, you need to choose one. Just sort of, what was your first gut initial reaction? Don't second guess it. So anyone do this?
I think it depends on what's happening. If a woman's getting attacked, if someone's trying to rape her, then right off the bat, you go and try to help her. But if somebody's putting something in their pocket at Walmart, you might just tell security and not handle it yourself. So I just think it depends on the situation.
That's very, very good point. Everyone who didn't raise their card, I guess, do you sort of fall? Do you agree with your number 37? Who's here heard of the term vigilante? Your number 3, 4. When you hear the word vigilante, what do you think of?
Someone who acts in a sociopathic type capacity, goes out and believes they're acting on behalf of the law and going after who they perceive to be the criminal themselves.
Okay. Does everyone agree with your number 4? Or does anyone have a different definition of what they think of when they hear the word vigilante? For 43.
When I think of a vigilante, it's just somebody who takes law into their own hands. I don't necessarily think that it's 100% sociopathic, but in general, they do disregard like the enforcements that we have there, and they're trying to usually get around the system or outside.
So between those two definitions, does anyone else have another definition, or does everyone agree with those two examples? And this is the Webster definition. It's a self-appointed doer of justice. There wasn't a Webster definition for vigilantism, so I sort of took it from Wikipedia. And so vigilantism is the act of enforcing the law and investigating and punishing offenses and crimes without legal authority. A vigilante is a person who practices or partakes in vigilantism or undertakes public safety and retributive justice without permission. Now, this isn't a legal definition. Like I said, this is a definition. There is no legal definition for vigilante. But now that we all know what a vigilante is, if anyone didn't know, I guess who here feels that sometimes certain situations call for someone to be a vigilante and that is proper? Or who here feels, going back to that earlier question, that we should leave it to the authorities, the people who are trained and are sworn to take office to handle those type of situations. And so I'm gonna ask the same question again, but now that we keep in mind sort of the whole vigilante aspect of it all. If you still think it's okay to handle yourselves, if you would raise your card, you fall into that number 1 category. Or if you change your mind also, 4, 8, 9, 15, 16, 22, 23, 45, 51, 54, 58, 63, 69, and 73. Can anyone think of a reason why we don't want people acting as vigilantes? You're number 11.
Because we don't want people acting as vigilantes because what they perceive to be justice, they may not have all the facts. And so they might think somebody did something And so they want to pay them back for that, but maybe they really didn't do it, or maybe they just don't have all of that.
Can everyone hear juror number 11? Juror number 2.
The person may become reckless and injure themselves in the process.
Said the person may become reckless and injure themselves in the process. Juror number 7.
Pretty much how our law
She said question. Yes, juror number
66.
Yes.
So it seems like we talked about the definition of murder and manslaughter. Murder would be intent. Manslaughter is not. Vigilante feels like because it's serving justice, right? If that was the definition. Exactly. It's like, anyway, that would maybe mean intent, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I'm tracking here, because it sounds like we're talking about vigilante, which would be intent, and that would be murder, not.
Possibly, yes. Yeah, it could be either one. But essentially, what we're talking about a vigilante in this course is someone going out and sort of taking actions into their own hands. What juror number 11 said and juror number 2, juror number 7, is that we have people trained for this. We have this courtroom for this. We have a system in place to sort of prevent things from getting out of hand. Or things not turning out like they should, because sometimes people don't have all the information. So we want to talk with people handling those type of situations. Does everyone agree with me on that? At least that if the situation is calls for it and is able to, the authorities should handle emergency and things like that, offenses. Elements of offense. If you're chosen on the jury and you get the jury charge, which is the law that the court will give, we'll talk about elements. And elements is just how we break down the law and how we're taught in law school, just to make sure that we understand everything that the law calls for. And as prosecutors, we make sure that we prove everything that we need to prove. So we just sort of break it down into parts and we call it elements. This is what we, Ryan and I, the state, have to prove for manslaughter. That on or about a certain date and bear consequently, the defendant recklessly caused the death of another. And we have to say how they did. Do those elements make sense to everyone? Does everyone understand what we have to prove? What we don't have to prove? Anything that wasn't one of the listed elements. Most question is why the defendant or why someone committed the offense. Does that make sense to everyone? Does anyone have a problem with us not proving or being unable to prove why a particular defendant did something? So everyone is okay if we, the state, just proves that on or about a certain date, the defendant recklessly caused the death of another, and we don't say why he did it. Your number, can you go to Parkland?
Oh.
51, yes,
Can
sir.
I ask a question? We talk about lack of motive.
Pretty much, yeah. Like if we don't show motive.
Like this is manslaughter. Never mind.
I couldn't, I'm sorry, the chair was squeaking. I could, and it's a really loud chair. I apologize.
You wouldn't need motive?
Yeah, because it's manslaughter.
Well, in any case, there's no statute, no criminal offense where we have to prove why, because oftentimes the only person who knows why a particular defendant did something is the defendant, right? And so that would place an sometimes impossible burden on the state. And so there's no criminal offense where we have to prove why or motive. Sometimes we know and we can prove it, and it sort of helps us prove those other elements. But it's not something that we have to prove. And I just want to make sure that everyone's okay with us not having to or not being able to prove why the defendant committed or any defendant committed an action. Burden of proof, the judge went over this. There's no legal definition. We can tell you what we think it is. And in some situations, what the courts have said it isn't. But it's not 100%. It's not removing all doubt, not beyond all possible doubt or beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. It's used in every jurisdiction across the United States, from traffic tickets to murder cases. It is a high burden. It's a burden that we meet in this court, in this courthouse every day, and gladly accept it. And so I just want to make sure that everyone understands that it's not an impossible burden. It's really what it means to you. Have you been convinced beyond a reasonable doubt? sort of hits on what I talked about earlier. We only need to prove the elements. You may have doubts about some things. The children on the jury, oftentimes when we're sort of giving closing arguments, we'll ask you, okay, if you have a doubt, it's okay. Is it beyond a reasonable doubt, and does it go to one of the elements? And this is a simple matter. So you may have doubts about some things, but unless that doubt goes to one of the elements, it doesn't matter. Does that make sense to everyone? I want to talk about some types of evidence that you may hear. I'll give an example of a robbery case. The first group of evidence that you could potentially hear is live testimony. And so that's witnesses, they take the stand, they swear to tell the truth. That's evidence. You may hear from a victim. Obviously, in a murder manslaughter case, you're not going to hear from, or you usually won't hear from the victim. You hear from police officers. Sometimes they're eyewitnesses. Does everyone understand that all of that is evidence for you to consider? Sometimes there's videos, and then sometimes there's physical evidence, like a gun, fingerprints, skill vehicle. Can anyone give me an example of why a particular witness may not come to trial? Let's say there was a robbery here and it's set for trial, and on the 24th. And so we had a lot of jurors who were out, that some who had doctor's appointments, that some who were taking a cruise. I guess would everyone agree with me that sometimes witnesses are unavailable? Sometimes people go missing, right? Can anyone give another reason of why a witness may not show up to trial? Juror number 12. Yeah, could be afraid of repercussions, retaliation. Anyone else? Juror number 39.
They might have their own issues with the criminal justice system and not want to interact more than they have to.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. Anyone else? And also, there's rules of evidence that say that certain evidence can only come in through certain witnesses. So let's say a gun was recovered. Has anyone heard of like chain of custody and things like that? And so, in order for certain evidence to come in, certain rules have to be complied with, and sometimes some witnesses are unavailable. And so let's say the person recovered a gun, but that person is on vacation somewhere. Then that gun wouldn't come in because they're a part of that chain of custody. Does that make sense to everyone? Your number 51?
I'm sorry, I'm just having a really hard time hearing.
Okay, yeah, and Grant tells me all the time I start to trail off, so thank you. If I ever get quiet, just tell me and I'll pick back up again. Okay, as we're speaking about witnesses, who would you rather have as a witness? This guy or that lady? Yeah, it's easy, right? You'd rather have the nun-looking lady, right?
Depends on your case.
Really?
Right, because there's something theologic. You don't want the nun being a witness to anyone. But it's something based on theologic, like driven crime. So it depends what your case is.
Okay, that's a good answer.
They can both be bad witnesses.
Yeah, exactly. They both could be bad witnesses. But I guess just first impression, if you just saw the two.
No distinction.
I appreciate that. Who is more likely to be a victim? And this is a trick question. So who's more likely to be a victim? You're number 52. Yeah, either one, right? Like, no one chooses to be a victim in time usually, like, I'm gonna get time, any place. So what if the victim has done something bad or should have known better? Let's say they're walking carelessly around with dollar bills, cash, physical. Or they go to the ATM and they get cash and they're just counting it out and taking it, and they're walking in this dark alley. My question to you is, if the victim put him or herself in a position to be hurt or to be a victim, how do you feel about the case? Do you feel that it's very low, that there are more important cases? Sort of they did it to themselves, not as important, they should be treated the same, or it doesn't make a difference to you how the victim acted, that every crime should be treated equally. And so I want you to rate, I'm gonna go through each number, I want you to raise your card and let me know which category you fall into. Who falls into the number 1 category? falls into the number 2 category. Number 3 category. We have 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 35, 36, 37, 38, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 53, 54, 56, 58, 61, 62, 63, 64, 66, 67, 68, 69, 72, 73, 75. And then the number 4 category. 17, 20, 39, 52, 59, 60, 70, 71, and 74. Okay. So the judge talked about the one we're going to throw out. We want to go over it a little bit to make sure we're all on the same page. So I'm going to show you 2 scenes: dark alley and a Spurs basketball. And the question is, would you rather be robbed here or here? And I know your first example, or first reaction was probably, I don't want to be robbed anywhere, right? But as we sort of talked about, like, who knows why a defendant committed a crime, who chooses where a crime is committed? The defendant, right? The person committing the crime. So let's say we get out of here late. Won't happen. You know, we'll never get out of here late, so don't worry about that. Let's say we're in another court and you got out of here late. You're walking to your car and someone comes up on you and they're like, give me all your cash. You're number 20. You turn around and you see juror number 21 and he has a gun. Yeah, I know that guy. That was juror number 21. So then you go to the police department. You're like, someone just robbed me. It was juror number 21. I just spent hours with him in a hot courtroom. I know it's fake. And they were like, well, was anyone else there? And you're like, I was walking alone. Okay, well, were there any cameras? No. Okay. Do you have any other additional evidence, fingerprints, anything like that? No, but I know it was him because I sat next to him. It was juror number 21. And the person you're reporting it to, the officer, like, sorry, that's not enough. I need more. Does anyone think that that's fair? No, right? And so that's why we have the law. That's why the courts have said that if we, the state, were to bring you a case and we only bring one witness, but that one witness proves all the elements to you beyond a reasonable doubt, we find that witness credible, and like I said, they prove all the witnesses, that that's enough, that you should be able to find someone guilty based on that one witness. And so my question is, if only one witness were to testify to all of the elements of the offense, and I believe that witness beyond a reasonable doubt, I would be able to find someone guilty. I want you to answer 1, if you strongly agree; 2, if you slightly agree; 3, if you slightly disagree; or 4, you strongly disagree. So 1, you strongly agree with the one witness. You would be able to find him guilty. You can raise your hand. 2, 6, 7, 8, 11, 22, 23, 24, 27, 29, 31, 35, 36, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 47, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56, 58, 59, 60, 62, 64, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 74, and 75. Who here slightly agree with that? 1, 5, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 26, 28, 30, 32, 37, 49, 53, 61, 63,
I'm sorry, did you say 39 or 49?
49. Who here slightly disagrees with it? I think I'm at 51. And who here strongly disagrees with it? 4, 15, 25, 73. Okay, and so here number 4. I guess my question to you is if, first of all, okay. So given the judge's example, given what I said now, if you were to bring you just one witness, you find that witness credible, they prove all the elements you beyond a reasonable doubt, that still wouldn't be enough. You would.
No, I just don't trust human memory.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your honesty the whole time. Defenses. So can't get into the facts, but we sort of have to go over some things that we think could potentially come up in a case. And so I want to talk about defenses, possible defenses. Self-defense. This is the legal definition. A person is justified in using force against another when and to the degree the actor reasonably believes the force is immediately necessary to protect the actor against the other's use or attempted use of a lawful force. I like to use a chair as an example. Consider the seat. Self-defense. You can't have a seat without the 4 legs, right? So it has to be reasonable, has to be immediate, necessary, and against unlawful use of force. So reasonable, immediate, necessary, and against someone's unlawful use of force. Does that make sense to everyone? If you don't have all 4 of those, the seat falls and there's no self-defense. Does anyone have any questions about that? Use of deadly force in self-defense. So a person is justified in using deadly force if they can use regular force, what we just went over, and when and to the degree the actor reasonably believes the deadly force is immediately necessary to protect the actor against the other's use or attempted use of unlawful deadly force, or to prevent the other's imminent commission of aggravated kidnapping, murder, sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault, robbery, or aggravated robbery. So let's talk about A. You can only use deadly force to protect yourself under A if the other person is attempting to use deadly force. Does that make sense to everyone? So you meet deadly force with deadly force. Or B, if they're committing one of those other offenses, which everyone would agree with, those are serious offenses, right? You should be able to use deadly force. Does anyone have questions about when you can use deadly force in self-defense? Defense of property. Your number 73.
Does that fall under stand your ground?
So Texas doesn't have necessarily standard ground because it has to be immediately necessary. So if someone's using deadly force against you and you can get away, and then like everything is sort of fact specific and it's for a jury to decide, right? But if you can get away, you can't be like, oh, like Ryan is coming at me, I can just leave, but then I'm like, now I'm gonna do that. So that makes.
I'm gonna object. It's in the strict conventional law, that issue.
All right, you can repeat your question, please.
So essentially what I said is that's to be immediately necessary and don't want to get into anything that is too fact specific, but ultimately it's up to a jury if you're chosen to decide if it's immediately necessary. Okay. Juror number 51.
Does Texas have a equal weapon law, meaning like you can take a gun to a knife? You can take, no?
No. Okay, and so defense of property. A person in lawful possession of property or tangible movable possession of land or tangible movable property is justified in using force against another when and to the degree the actor reasonably believes the force is immediately necessary to prevent or terminate the other's trespass or unlawful interference with that person's possession of the property. Reading that and hearing that, does that make sense to everyone? So if someone's on your property, you can use force to get them off your property. If someone has your property, or is trying to take your property, you can use force to prevent them from doing that. Does that make sense to everyone? Again, there's that immediately necessary. So what about when you're trying to get your property back? Same thing. If someone can use force to re-enter the land, so if someone is on your land or someone has your property, you can use force if you think that the person has no claim or right to what they possess, or if they use force or death or some other means to take it. Essentially, you can use force to get your property back. Does that make sense to everyone? I want to point out the language that says to re-enter or recover the land. So that's when you can use force. Under the law, if you already have the property back, you can't then be like, okay, now I'm going to shoot you. Does that make sense, everyone? Deadly force to protect property. The person is justified in using deadly force and against another to protect land or tangible property if he would be justified in using regular force. And when and to the degree he reasonably believes that deadly force is immediately necessary to prevent the other's imminent commission of arson, burglary, robbery, aggravated robbery, theft during the nighttime, or criminal mischief during the nighttime, prevent the other person who is fleeing after committing one of those offenses, and he believes it cannot be protected or recovered by any other means, or the use of force other than deadly force would expose the actor to a substantial risk of death or serious bodily injury. Now that was a lot. Y'all have questions about any of that? So now I'm going to get into some more personal questions. I want you to raise your card if any of these apply to you. Have you, a close friend or family member, ever been arrested, charged, or convicted of homicide, murder, manslaughter, criminally negligent homicide, or similar offense? Juror number 30. Anyone else? Juror number 4 and juror number 17, 25, 26. Okay. Of you who raise your cards, based on that experience, do you think that that would affect your ability to be fair and impartial in this particular case? Juror number 4. Are you comfortable going into detail, or would you?
Well, no, I've related to people close to me who've been charged. I've also had close friends of mine that have been murdered, including a brother. So it's hard for me to, it would hard for me to be really impartial in this case. Because I know so many people have gotten killed. It's just difficult for me to, it would be difficult for me to be impartial because of my life experience, the way I grew up.
Okay. Who else raised your card? Juror number 20, or sorry, 17. What experience do you have?
Friend of mine was that one.
And so based on your friend's experience, would that affect your ability to be fair and impartial in this case? It would not. Okay. 24 or 25? 25. Yes, ma'am. What experience do you have?
The guy I live with, I think he was arrested and charged years ago for drugs. I think he was selling them or something. So it's been like 40 years.
40?
How long ago?
About 40 years.
Okay. And you think that would or would not affect your ability to serve on a jury?
This would not, but what you talked about last up there about property issues have a big.
So can you tell us more? And can you tell us just so everyone can hear you?
Yes,
or do you have?
no, let me tell you, but my husband passed away about 20, now it's been 25 years ago. And I was in my house, police officers came in and removed me from my house because the lawyers or whoever their people were told them that I was not married and all of this stuff. And I was forced to go to court. It took 3 or 4 months, went through some downtime. And I don't have that much faith in that. On this issue, I'm okay with it, but on the property issue, I'm to this day, I think about it every day. What they did to me, because they went in my safe, took all my jewelry, my stocks. They left me with nothing. And I had to go to court and they lied. These were his family members that never showed up, never saw him, and all of a sudden they're family members. And prior to that, there were people following me or something like that, but I'm sorry, I don't have faith on the property issue. On this, like I said, it was years ago. I don't do drugs or anything, so I don't have a problem with this. But the other issue, I have a big issue with that with lawyers. I do have an issue with that.
And I'm sorry, I appreciate your sharing. Juror number 26, did you raise your card?
Yeah, so, like someone else said, I know someone who was driving drunk and they also ran into a tree and killed the passenger driver. They did like serve time and I definitely think they deserve that. And then I also know someone who recently passed, like they were put to rest last Thursday because they were changing a tire and a drunk driver came and hit them and knocked them off the bridge of the highway. So I'm just having like a hard time like grieving with that right now. So, but yeah, those are the only things I really experienced.
Would those experiences affect your ability to serve on this case?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you. And I have one more person, juror number 30.
My husband's uncle is currently serving time for intoxication.
And I guess knowing what everyone else is your husband's uncle's case, would that affect your ability to be fair and impartial on this case? Did I miss anyone? Do you know someone or yourself that you feel has been treated unfairly by the criminal justice system? This applies to you either way part or for you. Juror number 10.
Yes, so my cousin was hit by a drunk driver. That was about 8 years ago and he's still paralyzed, non-vocal, not able to do anything for himself. And to my knowledge, the person who did it is now free.
I guess, and who was that to you? I guess knowing what your cousin went through and how, I guess the criminal justice, is that case still pending? You know?
I don't know anything about the legality of it, I just know that. It's, you know, completely can't do anything for himself, he's been in a rehab facility, he was my age when it happened. So if this case is directly involved with driving on possibly, it's a problem.
Okay. Who else? Juror number 13.
A very dear friend of mine was tried and convicted of a felony. And they used one witness and claimed they were a reliable witness when they were 4 years old. And their testimony was just not convincing or credible for me to convict.
And so based on that person's experiences and what you learned of it, would that affect your ability to be fair and impartial in this? Who else for part 45?
Yeah, my lady, she in Guadalupe County right now. She's been going through it, like she's been going just dealing with like probation violations and all that. They kind of just played her and dragged her out, like they just been doing it for years pretty much. So I feel like she's being treated unfairly by the justice system just because the whole probation system is kind of just like a cat and mouse game, you know, getting running around, paying fines, paying fees back and forth. I just feel like they did her bad, like she was almost done, ready to complete it. They violated it right before, like she was about to complete it. I don't know, I feel it's unfair, that's sort of.
Would that affect your ability to serve on the church?
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? 59.
I have a cousin who just passed
Hold on,
away.
hold on. Okay, speak up.
I have a cousin who just passed away recently last Wednesday. She died in jail. She was found hung. So, I just feel like she didn't get this.
Would having what happened to your cousin affect the ability to serve on the church? Yes, it would.
Yes.
Next question, have you or someone you know had a negative experience with law enforcement that you think would affect your ability to be fair and impartial in this case? And so I know pretty much everyone raised their card that they've gotten tickets, or I guess there were like 10 ago that haven't. And so we've all had negative experiences with law enforcement, but I want to know if that's your ability to be fair and impartial in this case, knowing that there may be law enforcement people who testify in this case. So if you think that your negative experience or someone you know if their negative experience would affect your ability to be fair and impartial, if you could raise your part for number 4 or no?
I mean, yeah, I mean, like, I've been beat up by a cop before for no reason.
You
so
did?
Yeah, yes, it's hard for me to be fair. I mean, it's difficult for me to be trusting.
Sorry. Anyone else? That's 61.
So. I feel like I would be, because, when we're talking about force.
I'm sorry, Miss, I'm sorry, Miss, could you speak up a little bit so that the court reporter can hear?
He was being reckless. He just wanted, to be removed from the property. And I feel like the police officers used, too much force on him and broke his arm. And I feel like I would be, I don't think I would be just if the police officer would have like be a witness thing, or say that the behavior was correct or not. I feel like
Okay. So if the police officer were to testify, I guess based on your friend's experiences, you would hold that against the police officer? And you would be unable to be fair and impartial?
Okay, I did not hear that.
Did you say just to be honest with you? Yes. I would be unjust. Anyone else? Is anyone uncomfortable sitting in judgment of another because of religious, moral, or philosophical beliefs? So if you're chosen on the jury after we present our case and everything is done, you'll go back to the jury room and to deliberate. And so you'll have to make a decision on whether that person's guilty or not guilty, whether we prove the case or not. And so is there anyone who would be unable to do that, to be unable to deliberate because of religious, moral, or some philosophical belief? So, another question for y'all, and I want you to answer either one or two. And I know it's hard to pick one, but I need everyone to pick which one, like, even if it's just slightly. The goal of the justice system is to, 1, punish people when they do wrong and deter others from doing the same, or 2, rehabilitate a person who does wrong and get them help. I understand that everyone may have feelings in between. I mean, nothing's black and white, but if you have to choose one, which one more aligns with how you feel? So if you feel that the goal of the justice system is to punish someone when they do wrong and to deter others from doing the same, you could raise your card. 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 35, 36, 38, 40, 41, 42, 37, 34, 45, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 56, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73. Okay, and you're number 2. And just as after I read it, I was like, probably should have wrote it like this. And so I want to see if this changes any of your answers. The goal of the justice system should be, and so not is, so some people might feel like, oh, like, we're just trying to punish people and throw them in prison or jail. But the goal of the justice system should be to punish or rehabilitate. So with little change in language, does that change anyone's answer who raised their card for number 1? 6. Okay, 2, 5,
Say
6.
that one more time.
Wait,
So that was written up there. The question I'm asking is, the goal of the justice system should be to punish people and deter others from acting the same, or to rehabilitate a person who does wrong and to get them help. So I'm gonna have to go through it all again because I realize that's gonna change some of your answers.
I have a question with the verbiage. So should be and is to are two different things.
Yeah, exactly.
But
And so I'm
but you
asking-
said them both.
No.
So should be
Let me-
and is to, two different things.
Actually change this so y'all know. No.
Yeah, like there should be and what it actually does are two different things.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is what I'm asking. What do you think the goal of the justice system should be? Okay? Yes. In an ideal world, perfect world, this is what the goal of the justice system should be. So some people feel like if you commit murder or steal, you should go to prison. There's like, that's the main reason for the justice system. Some people feel like, no, like you get help. And obviously, if you're a victim of the crime, you may feel a certain way. But I just want to know generally, how do you feel the goal of the justice system should be? Okay? So if you fall into that first category, the goal of the justice system should be to punish people when they do wrong, deter others from doing the same. Raise your card. 7, 8. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. 7, 8, 1, 9, 10, 14, 16, 17, 19, 20, 23, 25, 26, 28, 29, 35, 36, 31, 41, 42, 44, 47, 48, 50, 51, 53, 54, 56, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 67, 68, 70, 72, 73. And Cougar feels that it's the goal of the justice system should be to rehabilitate a person who does wrong and get them help. 2, 4, 5, 6, 11, 12, 13, 18, 21, 22, 27, 32, 38, 39, 40, 43, 49, 52, 59, 66, 59, 69, 58, 71, 74, 75. Let's cover this. Skip that. Skip that. Last question, is there anything that I didn't talk about that we didn't cover that you think is important? Oftentimes you get back there and we'll have George come up and they're like, I was waiting for someone to ask me about this, or I wanted to talk about this, but no one ever asked. This is the time, so I'm asking you generally, is there anything else that you think you should know as to why you could or could not, I guess essentially could not serve on this jury? Juror number 13.
About a year ago, they finally convicted a man. My best friend was killed by a drunk driver, and they finally convicted him last November. But it was a manslaughter charge, and so I'm pretty biased with that.
Okay. Juror number 51.
You, it's hard. You asked about, criminal, being charged with manslaughter. My first wife was struck and killed. The guy was convicted of manslaughter.
Okay. So I guess knowing that, would that affect your ability to serve on the jury?
It would definitely.
And 13, I think you said it, but
Yes, it would affect my ability.
okay. Juror number 43.
So for the one witness thing, if I believe the person, if I believe without a reasonable doubt that the person's telling the truth, I could convict, but I find it very hard to just believe witnesses without additional proof. So
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you for your time, everyone.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to give you a break. So if you all can make sure to one, look to your left, look to your right. Don't be that juror who doesn't have your buddy with you. So I'm gonna give you all a break and we're gonna be back here at 11:35. Now, if you need to use the restrooms, where you see the stairwell, you can go all the way down to the first floor. There's restrooms on either side. One side's men's restroom, one side's female restroom. Just follow the stairwell and you will see them at every floor and they're right next to the stairwell. Does everyone understand? All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors.
I just ramble on.
Right, and guys, we're gonna start up. What time we start this afternoon depends on when we finish this board here.
Okay.
But we're gonna do testimony this afternoon.
We have.
All right, thank you.
I think that's doing that at 5:45.
Oh, we're not gonna be.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna, close this off probably at 4:30, depending on how your witnesses go. Of course, if there's a witness that's, you all haven't crossed, I'll let you cross them. But the latest you need to be out here is by 5?
Yeah.
All right, so the latest we'll stay today will be 5. I usually try to release jurors at 4:30 so they can avoid rush hour traffic.
Oh, yeah, it's so bad, especially with that destruction over here.
And is there any video that I can? Yes, we're ready.
All right, so the jury.
All right. Oh, please have a seat. It looks like everyone has their jury buddy with them. Brenda, have I spoken too soon?
Maybe, yeah.
I always jinx us by speaking too soon. All right, everyone, please be seated.
All right, so no one lost a juror. That's good. All right, so there are two things that I didn't get a chance to discuss with you, and I'm going to discuss that with you. Then I'm going to turn it over to the defense. I think everybody understands that I love people who speak a lot of languages. Is there anyone here whose English is not your first language? Oh, this is awesome. Oh, and you guys are sitting next to each other there. All right. Juror number 6, what is your first language? All right, and have you been able to follow everything that we've been saying? All right, thank you. Juror number 7, what's your first language? All right, and have you been able to follow everything? Thank you. Juror number 61. All right, and have you been able to follow everything? Thank you. Juror number 69.
Spanish?
All right, and have you been able to follow everything?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I always have to ask that question because sometimes we may end up with a juror who doesn't speak the English language. So I always want to ask that question to be sure. The other thing I want to tell you before I turn it over, sometimes you will see people who come into the courtroom from this door or this door. Sometimes it's officers and it has to do with something other than this case. So don't pay any attention to that because even though we're in trial for this case, I still have other documents that I need to sign and other questions that people have for me. Now, when they come through this door, they'll usually come in looked shocked and walked back out. What that means is they didn't read the sign on the door that says, we're in jury trial, do not enter. So pay no mind to that. All right, with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the defense. Defense, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming back and not leaving. We wouldn't want to do this all over again. But- So my name is Guillermo Lara. Together with Matthew Allen, we're going to we do represent Mr. Jose Parada. Now, part of the reason why we're here today is extremely important, and I know it's been talked about and discussed before. Jury service, right? We talk about it. We say, why are we here? We're here because you, as the people who responsibly showed up today, actually have a very important role, right? Your job here is to be judges of the facts, judges of credibility of witnesses. But to get to that point, you have to ask yourself, is this the right case for me? And like we talked about before, why are we discussing these things with you? We're discussing them with you because in jury service, it's absolutely the only time that we get to speak to you before we actually select jurors who are going to sit and judge these cases, right? So that means that we have to get to know you just a little bit so that we can find out what are your opinions, what are your beliefs on certain topics, right? And the reason why we do that is we need to know, can you be fair? Can you be impartial? Can you be non-biased in this particular fact scenario, right? So each and every one of you in this case, in this courtroom, would want someone who could be fair and impartial. So what I mean by that, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking too fast. I'm also Hispanic and I do speak pretty fast. What I mean by that is that we have to figure out specifically, what opinions you have about certain topics that may or may not be presented in this case. Okay, so let's just say, for example, juror number 29. Let's say juror 29 came into this courtroom today, and in his mind, he already had made up what his verdict was going to be, right? Would he be fair or would he be impartial? No, right. So what we're trying to find out is, are you giving us a head start or are you giving the state a head start, right? Because we want it to be an even playing field. Anybody who comes into a courtroom, you want someone to be objective as a juror. You want to come here, you can't set aside all your beliefs. You can't set aside all your opinions. But what we're asking for you to do is to really think about it and say, well, you know what? I really can't sit in judgment of this case against Mr. Parada because I've had some personal things going on with me that I can't set those aside and be fair to him. Okay, so that's what we're asking of you. We're asking you, what is it in your personal life related to the facts that may come up that may say, I can't be fair to him. And I want to be fair to him because if I was someone in this courtroom, in a criminal courtroom, I'd want someone to be fair to me. Right? We can all agree to that? Okay, so going along that, bias, do you have such strong feelings that cannot be set aside that would influence your decision on innocence or guilt? Like the judge mentioned, there are two phases to the trial. First phase is going to be determining innocence or guilt. Second phase, we'll get to that. That goes to punishment. Now, who knows what that is?
That's a catch.
Okay, juror number 49. Okay, so are you a Cowboys fan?
I am, unfortunately.
Okay. Juror number 50, do you think that's a catch?
No.
Okay, so juror number 49, would you say that because you're a Cowboys fan, that your opinion may be biased as to whether or not that's a catch or not?
Sure.
Right? So do y'all see what we're getting at here? So what is your starting point, right? Preliminary questions. Okay, just moving on. I want to ask some specific questions here. Number one, and we'll start over here on this side. Anyone who's had a family member addicted to drugs or overdosed on drugs? Anyone here in this first group? Okay. Number 4 and number 8. Okay. Now on this side here. Anyone, to that number 1 question, anyone have a family member addicted to drugs or overdosed on drugs?
Does it include alcohol?
Yes, it does include alcohol as well.
Current addiction?
Anyone that you've experienced in your life that has that issue before. So 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, 30, 31, 36, 37, 38, 39, 41, 42, 45, 47, 48, 51, 52, and 54. Okay, and on this side, 58, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 66, 69, 71, and 72. And we have number 1 as well. Okay. Now, I believe this question may have been asked earlier. Yes, number 2. You have a question?
No. To include me.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yes,
That's okay.
number 2 as well. So I believe this may have been asked in a different form by the prosecution, by Mr. Sanders. Anyone have a family member accused of or has been accused of assaulting, accused of murder, or accused of manslaughter before? Anyone here in this first section? Number 4? Anyone here in this section here? Number 16, number 26, number 48, number 47. Okay. And on this section here. Okay, and thank you for your responses. I know it's not as personal, but I know it is kind of personal because you're divulging some information about your own personal life. And we appreciate that. Mr. Parada appreciates that because again, this is the only time that I get to ask you questions, okay? Anyone in this courtroom, this goes to everyone, has anyone in this courtroom been arrested for something you did not do? Number 4, number 15, number 51. Okay, thank you again. Anyone know a member of this, the state's, the DA's office? Does anyone know number 11?
Well, past member, I recognize that photo right there on the wall of Judge Steve Puldeg.
Okay,
He's a colleague of my husband's. I don't know him well.
okay, and where's your husband? Where's he employed?
He's an attorney, but he does civil litigation.
Okay, and your relationship or past relationship with Judge Hilbig, that wouldn't affect your ability to submit your. Anyone else know any member of the DA's office, Joe Gonzalez? Anyone else at his office? Anyone know anyone there? Okay. Number 4.
I know Joe Gonzalez is campaign manager.
Okay, and would that relationship that you have with him potentially affect your ability to sit and be impartial?
I don't know how I feel about it. Like,
Well, either way, I appreciate you giving us that.
yeah.
Judge talked about this in her part of the jury selection. She talked about every individual having a right not to testify. The judge will instruct you that the defendant in any criminal case has the right not to testify. How do you feel about that, this group here? Does anybody here in this group feel a particular way about that law that the judge will give you that a defendant has a right not to testify? Anyone have any particular feelings about it? Number 12?
I mean, I understand that's the law, but.
And who did everybody hear what juror number 12 said? Okay, would you mind saying a little bit louder? Thank you.
Sure, I said, I understand that that's the law and I respect that's the law, but if the question is how you feel about that, I personally think that if you're here and you're accused of something, you should be able to say something about it.
Did everybody hear that? Okay, who agrees with juror number 12 on that issue? Okay, few of you. Now, the judge asked that earlier. Now knowing what their feelings are about it, right? It's not necessarily, so the judge is going to tell you, they're going to give you instructions. Okay, the judge will give you instructions. The judge will tell you, you cannot and should not, for any reason, discuss that particular issue in determining your decision on innocence or guilt. Okay, so of all you that raised your hands before and raised your numbers, how many of you can set your feelings aside? Whether or not you would want that, how many of you can say, well, the judge gave me these instructions. And because as a juror, I took an oath to follow that, I'm not going to consider that one way or the other. For those that you had previously raised your hands, does it matter to you? Or would you follow the law? If you would follow the law on that issue, show me your numbers. Everybody show me your numbers if you would, this goes to everybody. Show me your numbers if you can follow the law where the judge tells you that you cannot consider that for any reason in determining innocence or guilt in this case. Can you show me your numbers and raise them high, please? Those of you in the reverse, those of you who cannot set that aside and your feelings about that particular issue are so strong that you cannot listen to the judge's instructions and set your feelings aside and would require a defendant to testify, raise your numbers high. Number 4, number 13, number 14, and number 37, and 73. And of those who raise their numbers, is there anything that I can say, the state can say, or the judge can say to change your mind on that issue? If they can, if you can change your mind on that issue, show me your numbers for those last 4 that raised their numbers. Thank you. And you see, that's exactly what we're trying to do in terms of dialogue, trying to figure out, again, what are your beliefs? What are your opinions? There are no right or wrong answers, right? So I don't want anyone to feel that, hey, look, I answered this question, now he's asking me another one. Well, the reason is we want to make sure, again, it's extremely important, right? Presumption of innocence versus the first reaction. Juror number 16. What was your first reaction after hearing what the charges were in this case?
Honestly, I was surprised and I felt really emotional. Like, I automatically said, to be honest, not guilty.
Not guilty? Okay. Now, by a show of your numbers, this goes to everyone here in this courtroom right now. How many of you feel that Mr. PARADA, sitting right here next to Mr. Allen, Mr. PARADA must be guilty of something because he's sitting here right now? Please raise your numbers high if that's how you're feeling right now.
To be clear, you're not saying manslaughter, you're saying guilty of something.
Exactly, juror number 12. So how many of you feel that he must be guilty of something because he's sitting here right now? Juror number 51, juror number 73. How many of you, this goes to everybody, by showing us your numbers, cannot reserve your opinion on Mr. PARADA's innocence or guilt as he sits here right now? Show me your numbers high if you cannot reserve your opinions on his innocence or guilt right now. 45, 63, and 15, and 15. I'm sorry? When it comes to the previous question, again, it's worded a little strange. It really goes to the innocence or guilt. So if you believe, and you can't reserve your opinion that you believe that Mr. PARADA must be guilty of something right now, to show us your numbers. Number 6. Thank you, number 6. Now, who knows what the presumption of innocence is? Juror number 43.
It's that you're supposed to assume that the defendant is innocent until the evidence proves, well, beyond reasonable doubt that they're not innocent.
That's perfect. Who agrees with number 43? Number 42. You agree with number 43 on that issue. So would you agree that as right now, if I asked you to decide whether he's innocent or guilty, how would you vote?
I wouldn't be able to vote because I don't know.
Well, if he's presumed innocent, so the law tells you and the judge will give you the rules and tell you that Mr. PARADA, as he sits here right now, today, right this moment, he is presumed 100% innocent. So if you had a vote right now, what would be your vote? Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So the law gives us that protection. I'm 40, I'm going to be 40 years old this month. I don't know. I don't know if any of you have seen Harry Potter, that cloak that guy has. It gives you invisibility, right? It protects you essentially. So right now, Mr. PARADA is cloaked with that presumption of innocence. Okay, just imagine that as he sits here right now, you haven't heard any evidence whatsoever. So the government, right, has to prove whether or not a set of circumstances took place that would result and you determining that he is guilty, right? But until then, he is innocent unless they can prove Mr. Parada is guilty. Can we all agree with that? Who doesn't agree with the presumption of innocence? He says, you know, that's not fair. It's not fair to them. He shouldn't have the presumption. Who believes that he shouldn't have the presumption of innocence? Now, is manslaughter the right case for you? Okay, I know some people, when you hear manslaughter, you already, you know, there are emotions that are being stirred up in a lot of us because we have our own personal experiences. You know, it's a type of case that invokes such strong feelings in you that, you know, you cannot sit in judgment of another on a manslaughter case. How many of you feel that way? Because we're dealing with manslaughter, I cannot sit in judgment of another because of that case. Show me your numbers high. Number 1, number 4, number 13, and number 51. Okay. Now show me your numbers high, please, on question number 2. If you, a loved one, or a friend have been assaulted or been a victim of an assault, bless you, or a murder. Show me your numbers high. If you, a loved one, or a friend. Okay, that's number 1, number 4, number 6, actually that's 9. I don't know mine. 10, 12, 13, I think I got you one. 4, 15, 16, 18, 19, 22, 23, 24, 26, 31, 32, 39, 40, 41, 45, 47, 48, 51, 52, 54, 59, 60, 63, 64, 72, 73, and 74. And of those of you that raised your numbers, is that experience, how many of you that have on the last question, right, that raised your numbers high? Does that experience with either you, a loved one, or a friend having been assaulted or a victim of an assault or murder, how many of you feel that the emotions that you have dealing with that experience is so high, it's you can't set it aside in sitting in a case like this, in a manslaughter case? Show me the numbers high if you cannot set those feelings, those emotions aside. Number 1, number 9, number 4, number 10, number 13, number 15, number 26, number 60, 63, 51, and 61, 59. Okay, and okay. Has anyone here in this courtroom ever had been robbed or burglarized? Okay. Juror number 24. What, can you recount that experience or give me a little bit about that experience?
Well, I've been robbed a couple of times. I walked in on a robbery in progress of apartment when I was in college about 30 years ago. I walked up on a guy breaking into a convertible I had about 20 years ago, and as recently as about 10 years ago, I had someone break into a different vehicle.
Now, how did that make you feel?
Very, very angry.
Juror, thank you, Juror number 29?
Yeah.
Would you mind saying, have you ever experienced something similar to that?
Same thing, it's just I guess break into the house. That was a long time ago. Maybe I was like 19. Stole my stuff mainly.
Did you ever get it back?
No.
How did that make you feel?
A little upset, yeah, angry.
Upset. Okay. Did you feel violated at any moment? No. Juror number 19. You had a similar experience?
Well, yeah, my house was broken into, and that was the word that, besides angry, violated. was the word that came to my mind.
Who agrees with juror number 19? That's 23. That's some of the emotions that you may be feeling in that situation, right? Okay, were you cautious or more alert after that experience, juror number 19?
Oh,
Oh,
and fearful for a while, that's what made me angry.
and that's important.
Afraid to, and feel safe in my home after that.
Would everybody agree? Did everybody hear that? Feeling safe in her own home, juror number 18. Have you ever had a similar experience to that?
Noticed that you've seen it on videos and that show.
Which show are you talking about?
I survived.
Okay, okay.
It makes you feel lucky to have happened.
Okay. Who agrees with juror number 18? You feel lucky that something like that hasn't happened to you, right? Okay. We're talking about your feelings, your emotions. It's important for us to discuss that again, because those are types of situations that you want to make sure that, again, when you're looking at facts objectively as you can, you're trying not to put in and inject your own beliefs into it, right? The evidence that we get is going to come from the witness stand, right? So the government, the state has a burden, right? He said he has a burden, and his burden is to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, right? And they accept that burden. Now, the facts that you get, they don't come from him. They don't come from me. They're going to come from that box right there. That's the witness stand. Okay. So as a juror, your job is to listen to what details and what facts are being presented, right? So your job as a juror is not to rely on what I'm saying or what he's saying. It's to focus on those facts, right? Because that's what they have to prove. And the only way they can prove it is with the witnesses and the evidence that they give. You can all agree to that, right? So how many of you, and I'm going to go through their witness list just to see if anyone recognizes a name. Most of these for the first group are going to be people who work with the San Antonio Police Department, okay? First is Detective Crystal Ferguson. Does anyone recognize that name or know that person? Okay, the second person is Patience Markich, and I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right. Does anyone recognize that name or person? Daniel Carrico, Detective Daniel Carrico. Anyone know that individual? Raul Juarez. Jonathan Dominguez, SAPD officer. Johnny Orona, another SAPD officer. Ryan Rodriguez. David Pendleton. Leslie, and I don't know how to pronounce that name, Leslie, and then you can see the last name there.
Shaky.
Anyone recognize that individual? Very uncommon last name. Wesley K. Stubbs. Jamie, again, number 19. Can you help me with that? James. James Fike. Johnny Solis works at a hospital here in town as an emergency nurse. Anyone recognize that name? Anyone in medical recognize that name, Johnny Solis? And Sabrina Espinosa. Now, how many of you are familiar with what's called a citizen's arrest? Juror number 43? 43, sorry.
Not really. I've heard of it, but like I don't know the actual details of it. Read that off.
Everyone remember to stand so that Brenda can hear.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So I've heard of it. I'm not familiar with it. I could read that off, but that's about I don't know the details.
Anyone, thank you, 43. Anyone, is anyone familiar with what a citizen's arrest is? Juror number 39, would you mind saying? What, just from what, on top of your head, what is that? How are you familiar with that and what does it mean to you?
You hear about it in like popular media, that it means you see somebody committing a crime, you might be entitled to hold them for the police or something.
Did everybody hear what she had to say? That if you see someone committing a crime, you may be entitled to hold them for the police, right? So the law says, chapter 1401 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, an offense within view, a peace officer or any other person may without a warrant, arrest an offender when the offense is committed in his presence or within his view, if the offense is one classed as a felony or as an offense against the public peace. Okay, how many of you think that that shouldn't be allowed? Show me your numbers if you think, I don't agree with that code of criminal procedure, and I don't think it should exist. Raise your numbers high if you don't agree with that code of criminal procedure, and you don't agree and should not exist. Number 4, number 45. Okay. Has anyone here ever made a citizen's arrest? Now, this case, we've discussed it before. It's about a manslaughter, right? So a person commits an offense if he recklessly causes the death of an individual, right? So going back to what we discussed and what the state discussed, the judge discussed, is that there are certain elements, there are certain, things that they have to provide in order to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. In a manslaughter case, they focus a lot on what was reckless, right? You're going to get a definition, right? The judge's job here is to be a gatekeeper. The judge's job is to say, this is allowed, this is not allowed. And at the end of it, after you hear everything, she's going to give you some instructions. In those instructions, it's going to be a packet. They're going to give you rules of law, right? I don't provide it, the state doesn't provide it, the judge does. Now, you're going to get a definition of what reckless truly is, right? You have to make a determination if actions and facts in a certain case meet that definition, right? Now, this is a long way of saying it, and I'm not going to read all that, but essentially, you have to determine whether or not there's a substantial and unjustifiable risk that the circumstances exist or the result will occur. The risk must be of such a nature and degree that the failure to perceive it constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of care. A lot of big words they're using there. It makes it a little easier if you look at it this way. The alleged act viewed objectively at the time of the commission. So the act itself, you look at the facts and the act itself, and you say, the act itself created a substantial and unjustifiable risk of the type of harm that occurred. Then you go to 2. That risk was of such a magnitude that disregarding it, the risk that you took, constituted a gross deviation from the standard of care that a reasonable person, so you got to put your reasonable person hat on and make the determination based on what a reasonable person would have thought at that time. Now, the defendant has to be consciously aware that the substantial and unjustifiable risk actually exists. And the defendant consciously disregarded it. So the Court of Criminal Appeals essentially said, what it boils down to is I don't give a damn, right? Like if you're reckless, you really don't care what's going to happen one way or the other, right? It's a callous disregard of the risk. And let me give you an example. So let's just say we have a 350-pound lion. It's not muzzled. It's not defanged. And I release it in this room. Right? That's reckless, right? I consciously disregarded the risk that could maul somebody. It could maul juror 29, right? I consciously disregarded that risk. But it has to be a substantial and unjustifiable risk, right? You look at it from the perspective of what is it? What are the facts in my given situation and given scenario, right? Now, the government talked about it a little bit, and there was a discussion about a vigilante. You all remember that? The vigilante is, and let me ask you all, 43, I know they talked to you about that. The vigilante, does a vigilante call the police before they do what they're gonna do?
No. No,
Why not? Why wouldn't they?
because they think that they're gonna be the justice. They don't need somebody else's help.
Right, who agrees with juror number 43? Juror number 38. Do you know who the Punisher is? Does everybody know who the Punisher is? Okay, I guess I'm kind of aging myself. So it's a character. It's a character in He's essentially a vigilante. He's a one-man army essentially. So there have been several different characters and they've kind of redid. Anyway, John Travolta's one. Anyway, so the point being, the Punisher, does he care about what he's doing? No, he has one focus, right? What's his focus?
I can't hear you or see you.
Sure, if you could stand up, please.
Revenge.
Revenge?
Justice.
Number 37, thank you. Number 37, you can stand up. What was that?
It's about justice.
His version of justice.
Yes, because the criminal justice system didn't give it to him. So he gets it on his own.
Well, let me ask you, Mr. 37, would the Punisher call law enforcement prior to committing his acts that he commits?
No, I don't know who the Punisher is. I'm thinking about Charles Bronson.
Okay.
He's more of my age.
Okay.
But no, he doesn't. He just takes care of it himself.
Okay.
After his wife, didn't get justice.
Right, and it's at that moment, it's the I don't give a damn type of attitude, right?
Well, he's just very mad. I don't know if it's, I don't give a damn because he plans it. He follows the criminals and.
Well, see, I know juror number, thank you, 37. What was your number, sir? Juror 66 mentioned it earlier and discussed it with the state. And he mentioned that, well, I'm kind of getting confused because when you're talking about a vigilante, you're talking about someone who specifically intentionally goes out to do something, right? Did everyone hear what 66 said earlier? So you can draw a distinction there. Vigilante has a goal in mind. What's his goal? Justice, right? To take the law into his own hand. He's gonna do it, right? But does he intentionally, knowingly, or again, those are the three elements or the mental states. You're looking at, did someone intentionally do it or knowingly do it, right? We're talking about a murder, right? So when you're trying to draw that distinction, you have to look at that and make sure, again, what facts do you have? It's very fact intensive. You have to look at all the facts surrounding the situation. Why? Because if you don't listen to the facts, you're gonna miss very important and crucial parts, right? As a juror, if you're selected, your job is to hone in on what they're saying. And does that match up with what they're saying happened? Right? Because like the judge mentioned, Mr. PARADA, Mr. Allen, nor myself have a duty to carry a burden, right? It's their job. If you're making an accusation in the state of Texas, in the United States, right? If the government makes an accusation, they have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't have to present any evidence. I'm not saying that I'm not. But what I'm telling you is that focus on what their job is and make sure that they didn't make the mistake. Okay? So what is the duty of a prosecutor? They take an oath, right? My primary duty is to seek justice within the bounds of law, not merely to convict. Number 44, why is that important? 44? Are you 44, 40?
I'm 42.
42, 44. Why is that important, 44?
44 would be back over there because we're 42, 43.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm 44. What do you think about that? I'm sorry, I know you're thinking about your kids right now, so I understand, but why do you think that's important that they take a oath? To say they're not simply going to seek a conviction, but to see that justice is done.
There's a process.
Why?
That's the law. So we have a code of ethics, code of standards.
Okay. Juror number 37.
Yes.
Why is that important? An important rule of law or an important oath to take from their office?
Because it's better to let 100 guilty people free instead of convicting the wrong person. So the prosecutor has a lot of power. So they could abuse the power, and they've done it in the past. So, but there is a code of ethics where they're not supposed to abuse their power.
Who agrees with 37? That's a good reason why it's important. Who agrees with that? Anyone disagree with that? Okay. And just like the judge mentioned, usually the ones that don't speak or raise their numbers are usually the ones that get chosen. I'm not sure. I know everyone has things going on. But I would, just interaction, because like the judge mentioned, at the end of the day, we want to hear from you. We want to know what your opinions are. And so it's important for us to discuss that. Juror number 4. Would you want a full investigation done in a type, in a manslaughter type of case?
Of course,
Pretty no
of course,
brainer, right?
of course.
Juror number 5, what about you?
Yeah, I would want it because I would want justice for the person that it was done to.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I would want justice for the person that it was done to, so I would want a full investigation.
Okay, and if juror number 6 was accused of an offense, would you want a full investigation to be done? Everybody agrees with that, right?
Yes.
Right, do you think it's better, when is it better to talk to a witness, juror number 5? When is it best?
I think when you're alone with them, to get the full story from them, if they're able to and allowed to do that.
Okay, and is it better to do it the day it happens, or is it best to?
Because that's an expression of brain and they remember everything that happened, when it happens, how it happened.
Did everybody hear what juror number 5 said?
No.
Would you mind saying a little bit louder, juror number 5?
For them to speak about it the day of, so that way they can, so that way it'll be fresh in their brain and they know what time it was, what they used, how it happened. That's it.
Did everybody hear it now? Does everybody agree with them? Right? Okay, would you want to have all witnesses testify? Again, not that you would require it, but would you want it? Would you want, again, all witnesses to testify? Right, because as a juror, you're determining what facts actually took place, right? And so as a juror, your job is the most important job. Putting the pieces of the puzzle together, right? That way you have all the evidence in front of you so you can make an informed decision. Juror number, I'm sorry, what's your number, man? 58. What do you think about that, 58? About the having a full investigation in any case? You agree? Do you think it's unfair to the state to require them to get all the evidence together to present to you? Okay. Sir, do you agree with that? It's their job? Yes. Juror number 64? Is something true just because the government says it is? Number 4.
Oh, I mean, if you agree with your tax bill every year. No.
Okay,
No.
no, does everybody, number 19?
Oh, no, I just disagree with it.
Oh, okay. Does anyone disagree with that? Does anyone disagree with that? Right, I mean, you want to, again, you need an explanation for everything, right? You want to make sure that there's an explanation for it. You can't just take it at their word, right? You don't make any assumptions in a criminal case, right? Because what you need here, this is a courtroom of evidence, this is a courtroom of facts, and we need those. Because that's what we're doing, we're building facts so that you can make an informed decision. I don't want to pick on you anymore, 43, you've answered a lot, but I know a lot of us have discussed this before. How many of you have heard of the license to carry laws here in Texas? Number 73 has, sure, what's your number, sir? With this, 67, have you heard of that, license to carry? What's your opinion on it?
I think every Texan, everyone should carry one.
Okay. Does everybody agree with 67 on that? No, it's a different, again, so there's different opinions on it, right? Not everybody agrees with it. And so that's why we're gonna ask this specific question. We're gonna start with number 1. And anyone who's fits in that category, please raise your numbers high, okay? How many of you believe law-abiding citizens should be allowed to carry a firearm if they want? Show me your numbers high if you believe that. 1, 4, 6, 5, 8, 9, 13, 14,
Counsel,
15.
to make it easy on Brenna, because we're gonna make her job easy, why don't you do the reverse question? Who doesn't believe? Because otherwise.
That works, that works.
Yeah, thank you. Brenna, I'm here for you.
Let me rephrase that question, just the opposite of that. How many of you don't agree with that and do not believe that every Texan or citizen should be allowed to carry a firearm? 2, 7, 10, 11, 12, 17, 35, 39, 37, 60, and 63. Okay,
63 or 62?
63. Now, this next question, how many of you are completely against anyone other than law enforcement being allowed to carry a firearm? Number 12? Okay, thank you, number 12. And see, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We need just to find again, what are your beliefs, what are your opinions about certain situations, right? And that's exactly, and I'm glad that everyone's participating in that. Thoughts on guns, juror number. What's your number? Yes, sir. 23. What are your thoughts on guns?
Oh, thoughts on guns. Depends they're necessary.
Who agrees with juror 23? Who doesn't agree with juror 23 that they're not necessary? 10, 12, please raise your numbers high. 17, 60, 64, 74, 39, 45, and 47. Now, is there anyone in this court? Thank you, 23. Thank you. Is there anyone in this courtroom here, over here that believes that I can't be fair and impartial and decide a case if evidence presented and involves a gun? If a gun's involved, I can't be fair and impartial in a case like that. Show me your numbers. 25. Juror number 5, what would you do if after you shot somebody? What would you do?
Comply with the orders, because I wouldn't want anything, even if I did do it, I would comply with the orders because I wouldn't want the repercussions to be worse than what they already are for myself.
Okay. Who agrees with juror number 5 on that?
I didn't hear.
I'm sorry, juror number 5, can you say it a little bit louder?
I would comply with the orders because I wouldn't want the repercussions to be worse than what they are already to myself.
Do individuals typically run in situations like that? Why would somebody run in a situation like that?
Fear of law enforcement.
Fear of law enforcement? 28?
They knew they did it maliciously.
Did everybody hear what 28 said? They knew they did it maliciously? 42?
Or if they have a record, something else on there that they're in trouble for already.
69?
No witnesses?
No witnesses? 19?
If they are drunk or inebriated or on drugs.
Okay. Number 10?
I think some people just have that type response.
Yeah, just,
Anyone in particular.
okay, did everybody hear that? That some people just have that innate response, fight or flight? Getting out of here, I'm gonna bolt, right? Let's see here. Has anyone here ever felt or been in a situation where you felt like you were in danger? You're number 38.
Yes.
Yes. Have you ever felt that before?
Yes.
What's going through your mind in a situation like that?
A lot of times I wish I had my gun on me. That's one of the things. I always keep it at home. I don't carry it on me, but situations at night. I do Uber and Lyft a lot as well. So I have been driving 3 in the morning, some kind of bad neighborhoods. People just kind of walking around in the car.
Okay, did everybody hear what 38 said? Okay, juror number 31. Do you agree with 38 said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation like that, number 31?
Yes, I have.
And how do you feel?
Pissed off. Really?
How were things moving or operating? Was everything moving quickly? Was it slow
At the time,
at the time?
it was quick.
Quick? Is anyone, thank you, 31. Juror number 64. You ever had a situation similar to that, sir? No. Anyone else have a situation similar to that, 31 and 38, what they described, feeling that you were in danger, number 50?
Years ago, I
work in a convenience store and I got robbed one night and things kind of moved quickly for me because when the guy came in and had his gun, I just kind of moved over to the corner and said, hey, dude, stop the road. And he was just after the money in the registry, reached over the counter and he was gone. And, you know, my mind just kind of went blank. The thing I thought of is let him have whatever he wants and kind of get out of the way. And fortunately, that's all he wanted was the money and he was out the door.
Okay. Juror number 7.
The most recent was at, Del Mar, and it was that they thought they were the shooter, and then watch everybody. Closing down all the doors and causing my daughter and my husband. It's scary, and I thought it was slow, you know, I felt like I just wanted to get out of it.
You just wanted to get out of that?
Like, I was-
Okay. 28.
The only thing I could think of, and I'm trying real hard, how fortunate I am, I haven't experienced a lot of this,
Yeah.
but was 9/11, where I felt in danger. And I went and took my kids out of school, because I thought to myself, well, we're gonna go together, you know. That's why I felt that type of danger.
Okay.
That I could say I experienced.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. 27, you have something to add?
I work an overnight shift in a not so nice area. So there's been times where like an earlier shift has left the side door unlocked. We don't know about it because we never use that door. And we won't find out until like the drivers are coming in at like 3 o'clock in the morning and just turn around and there's somebody in the kitchen already. It's like, okay.
When in that situation, are things moving quickly for you, or is it everything is everyone has a different reaction to it, but how do you feel in that situation?
If I suddenly like realized there was somebody in the kitchen that was not supposed to be there, I'm already looking for the closest knife
Okay.
because I need to protect my ladies.
Did everybody hear that? She wants to protect herself, right? Did others have, excuse me, I'm still use you for your example. Number 27, did others have a different interpretation of how you were feeling at the time, or have you expressed to others, don't leave that side door open?
Yes, like because of things like that and like some other situations where we found like people sleeping like on the other side of our bins and stuff like that. Like now it's like mandatory, the doors are locked at all times. You have to ring a bell to come in. Stuff like that.
Well, would you agree with me that your perception of what's happening may differ from what juror number 7 may feel at that time?
Yes.
Right? So it can differ from person to person. Right? So based on your interpretation of it, that since you were directly involved, where you see the door open, you see people outside, sleeping outside, that to you strikes a sense of worry, a sense of fear, right?
Mm.
So that may not be the same for everybody, but in the way you've described it, was that if that happens to me, I'm grabbing the first knife that I can get, right?
Yes, because
Okay.
a lot of the people I work with are mothers and like, I don't have any children, but I want them to be able to go home to their kids.
Okay. Okay, thank you. 27. Now, beyond a reasonable doubt, the judge mentioned it, the state mentioned it, but it's extremely important because we can't give you a definition to what beyond a reasonable doubt is. We can give you examples of what it can be, but ultimately you as a juror have to decide what is proof beyond a reasonable doubt to me, right? And so essentially the government has a certain set of elements that they have to prove up, right? They have to show you this happened, this happened, this happened, and this happened, and this is how, right? So they have to prove that to you, the juror that's selected, beyond a reasonable doubt, okay? It's a really high standard. The judge mentioned it, that in civil cases, how many of you have been in a vehicle accident here before? Anybody? Okay. What's at stake in a vehicle accident, number 63? What are you trying to get in a vehicle accident case?
Personally, I was just trying to get my car paid for.
Did everybody hear that? 63? So in a vehicle accident case, again, the standard of proof there is preponderance of evidence, right? All she's looking for is to be made whole. right? That's the standard that you have right here. Preponderance of evidence, right? So then, you take it a step further, the judge mentioned in the civil type of case, the highest burden there is clear and convincing evidence, right? More likely than not, right, Judge?
I'm sorry.
Clear and convincing standard,
The clear and convincing standard is, what are you asking?
but what is it, Judge?
You're asking me, you're supposed to be telling the jury.
I remember you mentioned it, I didn't want to
Yes.
say anything different than.
No, go for it.
So the clear and convincing standard, right, is in a case where, let's just say, they're trying to take your children away, sir. Right, how much evidence would you want in that case?
Clear.
Well, how much? I mean, juror number 36, if someone was trying to take your children away, how much evidence would you want?
I guess like a lot, like if you're trying to take my kid away, like why? What proof do you have to take them away?
Right? Did everybody hear what 36 said? In a case where they're trying to take your children away, and that's where the clear and convincing standard is, right? You want to know, I want a lot of evidence. How many of you agree that if they're trying to take my children away, I want a lot of evidence? Everybody agrees with that? Okay, and we're talking about the civil cases, right? Now we jump to this verdict. We're in the proof beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal case. It's a lot higher. So we have a vehicle accident case where they're trying to take your children away, and then a criminal case where the burden is beyond a reasonable doubt. Why do you believe juror number 22? Why do you believe that the burden is so much higher in a criminal case? Okay, juror number 23. Why would the burden be so much higher in a criminal case than in a civil case? What's at stake?
Life.
Life? What else? Juror number 24, what else is at stake in a criminal case?
Personal liberty, freedom.
Freedom, personal liberty, right? So we're talking about three different standards. And the standard we have here is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And everybody agreed that if you're going to take someone's children away, you want a lot of evidence, right? So you want to take someone's freedom, someone's liberty away. You want proof beyond a reasonable doubt, right? It's not about maybe it happened. It's not about it's possible that it happened that way. It's I feel comfortable that they've proven their case, each and every element of their case, not just three elements, all elements of their case beyond a reasonable doubt. If at the end of the presentation of a case, they presented all their facts, all their witnesses, and you're still left thinking, I don't know what happened. I don't know if they've met it, then it's not guilty, right? Because that's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Would everybody agree with that? So if you're still left doubting a reasonable doubt, then they haven't met their burden. Was anyone here ever in the military? Anyone ever parachute? 35? Was it 10? Would you mind standing? Tandem or was it?
Tandem.
Okay, and so before you jumped out of the airplane, what did you do? Did you check your parachute?
Yes, we check them, make sure everything's good to go, make sure we're in sync with each other. I don't reach the vertical where he does, we parachute in the location when needed.
And why do you check it so thoroughly before you jump out of the plane?
I want to make sure it's gonna go. They don't take my word for it, they look at it.
Right, they don't take your word for it, they want to make sure too, right?
Yes, sir.
So, thank you. And so that's how I want you to think about it, right? You're gonna look at evidence and before you make a decision, you want to make sure you check each and every chord. You want to make sure you check each and every fact to make sure that you feel that sense of security before you make that jump, right? Because again, their job is to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not, well, guys, you can guess that this happened this way. No, it's, did they prove it to me with the facts? Right? And we're not being hard on them. That's their job, right? We can all agree to that. So there are three possibilities. Either the person is found not guilty, or you find them guilty, or the third possibility is I don't know. But if it's I don't know, then it's not guilty, right? Because they haven't proven it beyond a reasonable doubt. right? Now, your role as a juror is extremely important. I know, I'm sorry that I mentioned it multiple times already, but it's so important that we understand this is that you judge the credibility of each witness that goes up there. You're gonna see, and you're gonna have your own guide, your own basis to determine, do I trust that person? Do I not trust that person? Right, juror number 7? Juror number 6, would you agree with that? That you, as your own individual self, get to judge the facts that are coming out of that witness box, right? Juror number 5, you would agree to? So what we're doing here is you as a juror are the judges of the facts. Is it credible? Is it believable? Is this person just making stuff up? What was their state of mind, right? Those are the things that you're gonna think about, right? When you're judging the credibility of a witness, right? 25? Right? You wanna know, how am I gonna make this decision in this case with these facts? Well, I know how. I'm gonna look at what they're saying and judge their words, judge their movements, judge their mannerisms, because as a juror, my job, I'm gonna take an oath, and the judge is gonna swear you in for those that are selected. She's gonna say, and we are going to, again, take an oath that we will be the judges of these facts, and a true verdict we will render after looking at those facts. Analyze evidence and determine if the state has proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, and again, I apologize for saying it over and over again, but these are extremely important points that we all need to know if you are selected as a juror. Do you agree, number 5? Now, how many of you would automatically believe a police officer just because he or she is a police officer? Show me your numbers. Number 37, can you elaborate on that? Number 37, please.
Yes, for the most part, police officers do a great job. They protect citizens and they don't. For the most part, there are some bad apples like in any other profession, but for the most part, they do.
Okay, so let's take it a step further. So in this case, if you hear law enforcement's testimony and then you hear a defendant's testimony, are you giving the law enforcement a head start in terms of credibility?
Yes, I would.
You would?
Yes.
What if the judge advises you and addresses you and informs you that everybody starts off at an even playing field, right? You don't give anyone more credit than the other. Would you be able to follow that?
It just depends on the situation.
Okay. How many of you would give law enforcement a head start in judging or gauging credibility? How many of you say, well, law enforcement, yep, they're already up here. Any other witnesses down here? How many of you believe that that's your opinion, or that's your belief? Law enforcement is up here, any other witness is down here to start with. If you believe that, please show me your numbers. 18 to 44. Thank you. Now, is there any such thing as a human lie detector? Juror number 37.
I know there's a mistake, there's a lie detector, but not a human.
No human lie detector, okay. Juror number 30. Is there such a thing?
Yeah.
How do you judge, or let me ask you this, is it possible for reasonable people to disagree on what they believe happened?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. It is possible for them to disagree.
For instance, can you give me an example of why or a situation where you believe they may?
Maybe if I don't know, a kid stealing some candy from, 2 kids stealing the candy from the store, and one person may say, oh, well, that one took it, but it was the other one.
Right, no, okay, yeah, that's fair. It just based on how you perceive things, right? It may change things. Juror number 50, do you have something to add to that?
Well, yes, I was gonna say in this instance, it would be possible for 2 people to see something happen, but they have slightly different versions because of their view or their angle of view. You know, one may be off to the side, one may be a little bit behind, you know, what happened.
Sure.
So they may not have seen the exact same details because of where they were when things happened.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Juror number 41. What do you think about that? Do you agree with juror number 50 on that issue?
Yes, absolutely.
And do you believe it's possible that juror number 21 over here may perceive a situation or his candy, what was the, who gave the candy? A candy example may perceive it differently than juror number 25 may? And what would be the cause of that potentially?
Oh, seeing differently?
Different vantage points like number 50 said?
Yeah, like being in a different position of the situation.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to speak up.
Sorry, being in a different position of what happened at the scene, maybe hearing something else or seeing something else may have been taken instead of candy, there was something else there that got missing.
Is it possible for distractions to take place that may, okay.
All right, thank you. That's time.
Yes, and again, Judge Boyd's gonna give you the law. I thank you for your time and we look forward to presenting the case to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to give you your lunch break. And I'm going to need everyone to appear outside in the hallway back here at 2. So again, look to your left and your right for your buddy. And so I'm going to need you all to be lined up outside at 2, okay? All right.